Chapter 1389. Elder Bo Yin and the others were both surprised and delighted as they hurriedly stepped forward. When they got closer, they saw that the person in his arms was actually Chu Yu. However, Chu Yu's eyes were tightly shut and his lips were pale. It seemed that his condition wasn't very good. Rongxiu's clothes were also stained with dark blood. The thick smell of blood made people feel a little uncomfortable. One could imagine what kind of bitter battle the two of them had gone through. Elder Wan Zheng was filled with worry. Chu Yu, she's exhausted and has temporarily fainted. Rongxiu explained calmly. She'll be fine after she goes back and recuperates for a while. Only then did Elder Wan Zheng feel relieved. That's good. That's good. However, his eyes were still fixed on Chu Luiyue. It was obvious that he was still afraid that something would really happen to her. Elder Hua Feng came back to his senses. Rongxiu, did you specially go to save Chu Yu? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone fell silent for a moment. Rongxiu nodded slightly. Many people looked at each other in dismay, their hearts filled with shock. In Lingxiao College, who didn't know that Rongxiu had always taken care of Chu Yu? The two of them had a close relationship. But today, they finally saw it for themselves. Rongxiu actually risked his life to save Chu Yu. Looking at his blood-stained body, it wasn't hard to imagine what had happened before. But he still brought Chu Yu back. This, I'm afraid it's not an ordinary matter anymore, right? Rongxiu had a cold personality. He wouldn't even look at unrelated people and things. But now, he was actually willing to help Chu Yu like this. It was really surprising. Then, did you see those people who took Chu Yu away and their master? Elder Hua Feng asked anxiously. A faint light flashed in the depths of Rongxiu's eyes. When I arrived, I only met two subordinates, but I didn't see their master. Elder Hua Feng was a little disappointed, but also a little relieved. That's good too. It's best that he came back safely. In this way, it would be difficult for them to find out who the mastermind was. However, the fact that the two of them were able to return safely made them feel even more fortunate. I wonder if Chu Yu has seen the other party? As for these questions, he could only ask them later. Since everyone is here, let's not stay here any longer. Let's go back first. Elder Bo Yin said. Elder Hua Feng suddenly thought of something. Wait. The people around him looked at him. Elder Hua Feng hesitated. If we leave just like that, then what should we do about the place where Chu Yu broke through earlier? If he guessed correctly, those people should still be waiting there. I wasn't worried about anything else. I just didn't know if Chu Yu had left anything over there. After all, he stayed there for quite a long time. In reality, a few days was not a long time. However, compared to others who were unable to enter, Elder Hua Feng knew it was indeed special. He actually every time he thought of the must be something Chu Yu was able to enter, so he was a little bit freely. Jiang Ji was still unable to open. Can you help me? Jiang Ji won. Chu Luiyue, strange and absurd, as if he had been around the bush, always surged straight to Hua. Countless images. Rongxiu's lips were curved up slightly. He had seen them before. Elder Hua, can you help persuade the master based on her personality? He had heard of them before. Elder Hua Feng almost never heard of them. He had heard wrong. The chaotic memories surged. That place was already almost giving her. She actually asked, "We'll just go back. It hurts. There's nothing to see." She frowned slightly. Rongxiu's hands together. Rongxiu looked at her. Her eyes were noble aura that no one could disobey. I beg of you. Only then Master refuses to listen to my explanation, but he stopped. Since you've already said so. I almost forgot. Elder Rongxiu hugged her even tighter. He shook his head for a moment. Dan Xin gently pressed his forehead. They had to go back. He has been doting on you. The surroundings just like that became much quieter. He did this. Elder Bo Yin looked at him with a panicked expression. He has always been face full of his journeyed up his mind. Rongxiu never change it. Rongxiu did not persuade him any more trouble. Useless. She seems to have as long as they follow Jiang one path back. The cold and the reaction formation. I want to lie down like a corpse directly. Translator, the road was endless fantasy translation. He didn't like people found endless fantasy translation. So why would he be willing to speak everyone's speed was not Chapter 1390. You have to know, Elder Bo Yin's expression became, you won't have the compared to the hardships of others. There didn't seem to be anything. Elder Hua Feng turned around and was about to leave. Although there was no point in no matter how concerned he was, The road
because
was
until
obviously
now,
not a problem. She still didn't
wasn't a
repent
little too
and
intimate.
tried to
He was
use
carrying
all
man
sorts
to
of
man
methods to
acted like
continue
this.
staying
Many people
in the
anyone
eye
who
in
saw
their
it,
hearts.
this kind of
Elder
person
strong were
was
indeed
unreliable,
not comparable
Elder.
to
This,
ordinary
seeing
people.
Elder
Rong
Hua
Xiao
after
only
walking
said
for
that
a
he had
while.
known Chu
Elder
Yuan
Jung finally
made up
couldn't
at that
help but
time.
ask.
Elder
He
Hua
only
turned
turned
around
around
his
tired and
friends.
stunned.
I see that you're
Rong
interested.
Xiao, it's quite tiring to carry
in the
Chu
eyes
like
of
this.
outsiders.
But now,
How
she still
about
looked
Rong
weak.
Xiao
Carry him
raised
for a
his
while.
eyes slightly.
However,
only Elder Hua who was
he
standing
had no
close to
intention
her
of letting go.
could see the
Thank you,
determination
Elder.
and
Yes, I'll do it.
ruthlessness in
Elder
her
Bo.
eyes.
Elder Wan
Yin
chatted with
felt
Liang
that it was
Xiao, took out
just
a
jade
jade
bottle.
bottle. She said that the Liang family
could only
seeing
know
that
that
Rong
anyone
Xiao couldn't
couldn't
help
do anything.
Elder
Just
Hua,
know.
he took out the
Feng
pill,
Xiao
suddenly realized
although the
something.
small episode on their side,
they know
as
that
quickly
Liang
covered
tightly
Kong
shut,
died
still
here,
attracted
and she
the
couldn't
attention
send the
of bill
bill
Ling
no
Xiao
matter what.
colleges.
Some of the
Rong
students behind
Xiao
lightly
couldn't
patted
How
her
will they
shoulder
react?
and
Previously
said there were rumors that
no matter
Chu
what,
Yu and
the
Liang
Xiao
family is a
Chu
first
Lui
year,
but I
but
didn't
snuggle
think much
unless
to
it's
embrace.
absolutely
find
necessary.
How is this
had
good
a
relationship?
Shouldn't want to fall
He's
out
taking
with him.
care of
Elder
him,
Bo,
as if he's
Elder
his
Hua
own
Feng
villain.
finally understood.
T.S. Clear breeze,
even if
he's
it's
melted
in
in
her
mouth.
mouth.
He might not
And
be
shouldn't
like
Hui
Helps
West
right
swallowed the
Hasn't
pill with
Rong
her
Xiao
eyes.
always been
The
obsessed with doing
The
entire
entire
process
threatening an
doesn't
elder
like to be
was a
smooth
serious
as
crime.
Now it seems,
however,
and couldn't
it's
be
just
more
different.
natural.
One.
I really don't
know
know
what
what
kind
kind
of
of
luck
retracted
that
his
she
smile
has to be able to be
watched
favored
from
by
Do you think I'll
Rong
still
Xiao
care
becoming
about
more
this?
if I'm
I heard
expelled
that the
from the
two of them
academy?
look
actually
when
has
has
Rong
she was
Xiao
their relationship
ever been so
Elder
gentle
Hua
and
Feng
kind
stared
to
at
her
Think about it
for a long time.
If it wasn't for this, Rong Xiao insisted on carrying Chu Yu back and personally taking care of him. Rong
thought that
Xiao
it
was
was
because
because
Chu Yu had blocked that
someone
attack
so
for him.
well.
And he did it out of guilt.
Chu Yu's
and
origin
compensation.
is also
But
quite
now,
mysterious.
in his impression,
I've never heard
Rong
of his
Xiao
background.
had never
Maybe
been close to women.
Everyone was discussing
A ridiculous
and making all
thought
kinds of
appeared in
guesses.
Elder Bo Yan's
Obviously,
mind.
today's
The thought
matter
made
had
his heartbeat
given him a
wildly.
huge shock.
He quickly glanced at Rong
I think
Xiao
so.
and
Senior Rong
immediately
Xiao has
retracted his
been in the
gaze.
academy
Forget
for
it.
several years.
It's better not to
right?
ask about these
I've
things.
never heard of him
At the
taking
very
care
least,
of anyone like
he shouldn't
this.
have such a
Even when
strong
it came to
tolerance
Jiang
right now.
Ziyuan back
However,
then,
he had never
future,
spoken up for her in
his
public.
attitude
Look at
towards
Chu Yu
would probably
The difference
have
in
to
treatment
change.
is
Rong
like
Xiao's
heaven
lips
and
curled
earth.
up slightly.
That's right.
Of course,
I used to
he could
think
guess
he
what
treated
Elder Bo
everyone
Yan
like that,
and the
but who
others
knew?
would think when they saw
Hey,
the scene.
Jiang Ziyuan
he didn't
always
care.
said that she
Bo
and
Yan,
Senior Rong
painting,
Xiao were
at
childhood
this moment,
sweethearts.
Elder Hua
and
Feng
even
had
said that
finished
she
his
was the
conversation
first candidate
with
for the
Jiang
princess of the
Bo
Yin
Yan
Tower.
and Elder Dan
But today,
turned to look
Senior
at him.
Rong Xiao
Their gazes
didn't even
swept
look at her.
past
If there's really
Jiang
something
Ziyuan,
between them,
who was left behind.
why would Senior
In
Rong
fact,
Xiao be
they also
so
wanted to know
indifferent when he
what
saw
Hua
Jiang
Feng and
Jiang Ji
appearance.
talked about?
I think before
I have something that I need
it was
to tell
just
you all.
Jiang Ji
Elder Hua Feng's
unrequited
expression was
love.
solemn.
This
Jiang
caused the
Juan has
hearts of
already
Elder
broken
Bo Yan,
off her
and the
master-disciple
others'
relationship.
What
with
happened?
Elder Dan?
Elder Hua
I
Feng
think this
took a
time when
deep
she goes
breath
back
and seemed
I'm
to be
afraid
in a difficult
she
position.
won't even be able to
Jiang
stay in the
Juan,
academy, who was standing not
a group
far
of people
away,
roared with
stopped in her
laughter,
tracks,
and some of them
she looked
turned
up
their
with
heads
pride and
to admire
anticipation in her
Jiang
eyes.
Juan's expression.
Very good.
Jiang Juan's chest,
As long as Elder Hua
and
Feng
abdomen
was willing to
seemed
help,
to be surging
everything
with
would be
magma.
fine.
As
Thinking
if it
that
would
she had
suddenly
avoided a
erupt
calamity
in the next moment.
Jiang Juan
Mobile
couldn't
users,
help but
please
heave a
browse
sigh
for
of
a
relief.
better reading experience
At this
from
moment,
the Love Network.
Elder Hua Feng suddenly turned around
Chapter
and waved in a
1390.
certain direction,
But
in the
she
crowd.
still endured it.
Liang
Now,
Xiao.
everyone
Come
was
over here.
waiting to see
The
her
smile
make a
on
fool of
Jiang
herself.
Ziyuan's face.
Those
that
who tried
hadn't
to
fully
curry
spread
favor
out
with her in the
froze.
past were now
Uneasiness
avoiding her,
surged in her
as if there
heart.
was something
Why did Elder
terrifying
Hua
about her.
Feng suddenly
Jiang
call
Juan
Liang
was
Xiao
furious.
over?
But she
This
could
had
only
nothing to
swallow
do with
her
her at
anger.
all. She
Liang
knew that her
Xiao
situation
was also
had
a little
reached the
confused.
worst.
But she
didn't
still
think of a
walked
way to
forward
get
with
Elder
everyone's
Dan's
gazes
gazes
to retract his
She
order.
first greeted
Then
each
what
of the
awaited
Elder
her
one
when
by
she
one,
returned
then
was to be
asked with a blank
expelled from the
expression,
academy.
"What happened? Ziyuan, what's wrong?
Elder Hua Feng,
You don't look too good.
are you
looking for me?"
Liang
Elder
Xiao
Hua
walked
Feng
over
nodded and seemed to be
There's something
very
that I need
worried.
to tell you first.
As she spoke,
The
she
surroundings
sized up
quieted
Jiang
down.
Juan from head
Jiang
to toe,
Jiwan's heart
as if she was
fell into
admiring
an
her
abyss.
sorry state.
However,
Jiang
everything
Juan
had already
sneered in her
begun
heart.
to develop
If
in a
Liang
direction
Xiao
that was
really
out
cared
of her
about
control.
she would have
have come
Your
over
brother,
long ago. Liang
why wait
Xiaokong
until now?
brought people
She
here
was just
earlier.
making a fool of
Elder Hua
herself.
Feng said
Suddenly,
very straightforward.
Jiang Zhuan
Liang
recalled
Xiaoxiao's
something from
eyes
before,
widened slightly,
and her expression
My
changed
third
slightly.
brother is here?
She
Didn't
squeezed out a
Daddy
smile.
say that he wouldn't get
Don't worry,
involved in
I'm
this
fine.
matter?
Could it be that third
Xiao
brother
Xiao. So many
secretly
first-rate
brought people
families and
here?
clans are
He
here
has
this
always been a
time.
little radical.
Your Liang family
Recently,
should be here too,
the
right?
other disciples in the
Liang
family
Xiao
have
Xiao
also
was stunned.
performed well.
She didn't
He should be
expect her to
anxious.
suddenly mention
This to seem like something he
I don't
would
think
do.
so.
Elder Hua,
Previously, Feng
she
nodded
had sent a
slightly.
letter to her family.
About a few days
Her father
ago,
said that he
when we
was
just
busy
arrived
with
at
some
the
matters in the clan
we happened to
recently
meet him and couldn't
at
get
that
away.
time,
So
he
he
was
didn't
being
plan to get
hunted
involved
down,
in this mess.
and the Liang
Why?
family members
Did
who
you see
followed
our
him were
family
all
before?
dead. Liang Xiaoxiao's expression
Xiao
immediately
became
changed.
alert.
She
Jiang
moved her
Jiwan
lips.
laughed. My
No,
brother,
I'm just
Elder
asking
Hua Feng
casually.
paused. After
I'm
all,
sorry.
this place
You know
is
Ling
quite
Xiao
dangerous.
College's neutral
Once you're
position.
here, It won't be
Liang
so easy.
Xiao
to
Xiao's
leave.
legs went soft.
Liang Xiao Xiao's
she
brows
almost fell.
furrowed quickly.
An elder beside
For some
her
reason,
hurriedly
Jiang
supported
Jiwon's
her.
smile
Liang
made her
Xiao
feel
Xiao
inexplicably
only felt a
awkward
burst of
and
coldness
uneasy.
from the depths of her
She was
heart.
no longer
Something
in the mood
surged
to
from the bottom
continue
of her
teasing
eyes,
After
causing
her
vision
vision
to become
blurry,
blurry.
She
She
opened her
opened
mouth,
left,
but found
looking
that
at her
she
back
couldn't
view.
say anything.
The smile on Jiang
Only
Jiwon's
gusts of cold
face
wind
poured
poured
in
from between her
cold.
lips and teeth.
It
It
seemed
was
that
so
the Liang
cold that her
family hadn't
internal
received
organs
the news
seemed
yet.
to curl up.
At the very least,
Suddenly,
Liang
she seemed to
Xiao
have
Xiao
thought of
still
something.
didn't know.
She suddenly
Liang
turned
Xiaokong
around and
was the
looked
legitimate
at
son
Jiang
of the
Jiwon
Liang family.
Jiang Jiwon's
Now that he
heart
had
skipped a
died for
beat,
no reason,
and she looked
the
away
Liang
guiltily.
family would definitely
But
not
Ziwan
let this
said
matter
before,
rest.
She didn't
Thinking
see
of
my
this,
brother.
she
and the
quickly
others.
took a few
Liang
steps
Xiao
forward.
Xiao,
Elder
gritted her teeth,
Huafeng,
and
I have
said,
something to say to you.
Elder Huafeng
Elder
followed her
Huafeng
gaze
was originally
and sighed.
talking to Elder Bo
Actually,
Yin and
you
the
can't
others.
blame her for
But when he
this.
heard this,
After all,
he turned to look at her.
you two have been good friends
What?
for many years.
Jiang Jiwon's
She
hands
doesn't
were
want you to be
clasped
sad,
together,
huh?
as
Ling
if she
Xiao
was a
Xiao
little
almost
nervous.
laughed out loud.
This will only take up a
Afraid that
little
she
of
would be
your
sad.
time. Many
Didn't
people in the
Jiang
surroundings
Jiwon
looked
ask
over
those words on
curiously.
purpose?
Elder
Why is she
Huafeng
pretending to
pondered
be
for
a good
moment
person
before
now?
walking over.
Elder Huafeng,
Jiang Jiwon walked
I wonder
to
if
the
you can
side.
tell me who killed
The
my
two of them
brother.
walked out of the crowd.
Elder
Liang Xiao
Huafeng
Xiao
simply
clenched her
set up a
hands
barrier
and asked
to
word by
isolate
word.
the conversation
Elder
between the
Huafeng
two from
paused.
the outside world.
Can you
At
tell
that
me
time,
now? Your brother specially asked Jiang Jiwon for help. She stayed on the spot for a long time. She should be the clearest about it. Jiang Jiwon raised her head in shock and panic. Elder Huafeng, how can you say that? Elder Huafeng blinked and seemed to be slightly helpless. This is a matter of great importance. You have to tell the truth, right? Jiang Jiwon was at a loss for words. She hurriedly ran over and rushed to Liang Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao, listen to my explanation. I was Pa. A loud slap sounded. Jiang Jiwon lost her balance and fell to the ground. Half of her face quickly turned red and swollen. However, she was already in a sorry state, so it wasn't particularly obvious when she went up. B*TCH. Liang Xiao Xiao was furious. She wanted to tear Jiang Jiwon apart. Liang Xiaokong didn't enter Lingxiao College, so he wasn't familiar with the elders and the others in the college. Among those people, he was most familiar with Jiang Jiwon. Of course, Liang Xiao Xiao knew that her third brother had feelings for Jiang Jiwon. However, Jiang Jiwon was proud and refused to agree, so Liang Xiao Xiao didn't interfere too much in this matter. However, this didn't mean that she didn't know how much Jiang Jiwon had received from her third brother. In the end, this was how Jiang Jiwon repaid her third brother. Jiang Ziwan was stunned by the slap. She thought that victory was in her hands, but she didn't expect Elder Huafeng to be so ruthless and directly reveal everything. Reveal everything to the world. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1392. What should I do now? Jiang Ziwan desperately tried to think of a solution, but to her despair, she found that she had been pushed into a hopeless situation. Elder Huafeng had taken the initiative to make the first move, so it was inevitable that he would make Liang Xiao Xiao believe his words and think that all of this was her fault. However, the real culprits were those people from Lingyun Mountain. Moreover, she was not the only one who stood by and did nothing. Why did Liang Xiao Xiao push all the blame on her? Xiao Xiao, you've misunderstood. I had no choice at that time. Jiang Jiwon covered her face as blood slowly seeped out of the corner of her mouth. How could I be a match for those people? Liang Xiao Xiao stepped forward and grabbed Jiang Jiwon's collar, her eyes red. Those people? Who are they? It's... Jiang Jiwon was about to say something when she saw Elder Huafeng looking at her from the corner of her eye. He raised his eyebrows and revealed a faint smile. She suddenly shivered. No, she could not say it. If the words Lingyun Mountain came out of her mouth, then she would definitely suffer from Lingyun Mountain's revenge in the future. Lingyun Mountain was a true first-rate family. Not to mention her, even the entire Jiang family in the Immortal Water Tomb was no match for them. She must not get involved in this big trouble. I don't know. Jiang Jiwon's mouth was filled with a thick, sweet taste that made her want to vomit. At that time, they were all in disguise. I didn't recognize them. Bang! Liang Xiao Xiao threw Jiang Jiwon to the ground. Although she was not as strong as Jiang Jiwon, Jiang Juan was already at the end of her rope. She did not even have the strength to fight back, and could only be humiliated by the other party. Liang Xiaoxiao's chest rose and fell violently, obviously still angry. She pointed at Jiang Juan and smiled coldly. Good, good. Jiang Juan, I've seen through you today. From now on, I, Liang Xiaoxiao, and the entire Liang family are irreconcilable with you. Jiang Jiwan's heart thumped. What would happen if he was targeted by a first-rate family? She didn't need to use her brain to know. But this matter was clearly led by Elder Huafeng and the others. So what did it have to do with her? At that time, no one present made a move. Suddenly, a white light flashed through Jiang Juwan's mind. She suddenly understood something. Liang Xiaoxiao did on purpose. Growing up in such a big family and being doted on so much, Liang Xiaoxiao was obviously not as stupid as she looked on the surface. In fact, she was very smart. She knew that this matter was related to the Academy, but she didn't want to become enemies with the Academy. Moreover, the Academy was famous in the Divine Ruins world for having a high profile and never getting involved in the affairs of any aristocratic family or clan. It was understandable that they would do this. However, someone had to be held responsible for this matter. Then, she, Jiang Jiwan, had become the scapegoat. In this way, she could maintain a stable relationship with the Academy and avenge Liang Xiaokong. Why not? Jiang Juan wanted to support herself to stand up, but after trying a few times, she found that her body was trembling violently. How did things turn out like this? She was clearly the one who had the upper hand before, but now, Elder Huafeng finally spoke again. Xiao, actually, you can't blame her entirely for this matter. Although your brother begged her for a long time, you should be able to imagine that she was also injured at that time. How could she take care of your brother? Jiang Jiwan simply wanted to rush up and tear Elder Huafeng's mouth apart. Stop talking. Did he think that her situation wasn't miserable enough? If this continued, how could she survive in the Divine Ruins world? A cold light flashed through Liang Xiaoxiao's eyes. Don't worry. Before the matter is investigated clearly, I won't do anything to her. But after the investigation, it would be hard to say. Jiang Jiwan's heart was in a mess. What else could she do in this situation? Suddenly, she raised her head and looked past the crowd at the tall man in black. Right now, he was probably the only one who could help her. Your Highness. Jiang Jiwan used all her strength and shouted loudly as two streams of tears flowed down. She didn't know where she got the strength from, but she suddenly stood up and rushed over. Although her footsteps were staggering, her speed wasn't slow. Because it was too sudden, by the time everyone reacted, she had already rushed a distance away. Elder Huafeng's face turned cold. He took a step forward and blocked in front of Jiang Jiwan. He angrily rebuked, Jiang Jiwan, are you crazy? Jiang Jiwan was unable to get past him. She was extremely anxious, and her voice became even sharper. Your Highness, say something, please. Could it be that you really have the heart to watch all of this happen? The Immortal Water Tomb is one of your 28 divisions. Even if you don't want to give face to the monk, you have to give face to the Buddha, Your Highness. Everyone looked at Rongxiao. Jiang Jiwan's words weren't without reason. The Immortal Water Tomb was one of the strongest and most powerful of the Yuntian Tower's many divisions, and Jiang Jiwan was the apple of Jiang Hetian's eye. If Rongxiao really made up his mind to speak up for her, then everyone still had to give face. Rongxiao first glanced at the person in his arms. A faint mark appeared between her eyebrows, and her eyelashes trembled slightly, as if she was dreaming of something unsettling. Rongxiao held her in his arms, then immediately turned around and looked up slightly. That pair of phoenix eyes was cold and deep, wrapped in an astonishing chill. Jiang Jiwan was swept by this gaze and actually shivered. She opened her mouth, and her sharp and piercing voice suddenly became much weaker. Your Highness, you disturb her sleep, Rongxiao said coldly. Digression, tomorrow at 12, mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1393. The surroundings were silent. Jiang Jiwan opened her mouth slightly,
her pale lips trembling in disbelief. She wanted to say something, but found that her throat was dry and her chest was tight. She couldn't say a word. Her face was burning. Rongxiu's words were even more embarrassing than Liang Xiaoxiao's slap. Disturbed, Chuyu's sleep? Could it be that her safety was not as important as that person's sleep? Jiang Zhuan didn't ask this question because she had already seen the answer from Rongxiu's impatient and cold face. Those phoenix eyes looking at her were cold and emotionless, distant and indifferent, without even the slightest bit of friendship. Jiang Zhuan's strength seemed to have been sucked out of her body in an instant, and her whole body went limp on the ground. No one went to help her. The snow on the ground was so cold that it seemed to seep into her bones and blood. It was so cold that she shivered all over. Rongxiu had already retracted his gaze and continued to walk forward with the person in his arms. Not far in front of them was the transportation portal to return. Her current situation wasn't too good. She had to return to the academy as soon as possible. Seeing that resolute and cold back, Jiang Zhuan's hands clenched tightly. Finally, she couldn't help but raise her head and unwillingly and resentfully asked, "Your Highness, are you really going to abandon the Immortal Water Mausoleum?" The Immortal Water Mausoleum was the head of the 28 divisions. It was of great significance to the Yuntian Tower. She didn't believe that Rongxiu would be willing to take this risk for Chuyu. Rongxiu stood still on the transportation portal. His arms moved slightly, and the person in his arms shifted into a more comfortable position. Then, he raised his eyes and glanced at Jiang Zhuan. That glance was extremely cold and indifferent. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, containing a hint of a smile, but seemed to be wrapped in frost, making one's heart feel cold. "Before that, it's best that you think about how to tell your father about yourself," Chu Feng said. Jiang Jiwan suddenly widened her eyes. In that instant, something in her heart seemed to collapse. Yes, in the past, she was the apple of her father's eye. She was one of the top figures in the entire mausoleum of Immortal Water. Even if her father favored her, no one would say anything. But things were different now. She had been abandoned by Elder Danxing and was about to be expelled from Lingxiao College. Not to mention, there was also Liang Xiaoxiao's entanglement. Even if his father was willing to bear the responsibility, what about the others? She was no longer the person she used to be, and she no longer had all the privileges she used to have. At that time, why would the entire Immortal Water Mausoleum challenge the Yuntian Tower for her? There had never been a moment when Jiang Zhuan clearly understood that she really had nothing left. She had lost everything on this trip to the desolate north. "Let's go." Elder Bo Yin could not be bothered with him. He turned around and gestured for everyone to follow and enter the teleportation array. Elder Huafeng wasn't in a hurry. He walked through the crowd and arrived in front of Jiang Jiwan. Jiang Jiwan seemed to have sensed something. She raised her head to look at him and met Elder Huafeng's seemingly kind but actually mocking gaze. "Jiang Jiwan, you've always been smart and quick-witted. Your master has praised you more than once for your lively mind. Unfortunately, you don't understand that sometimes cleverness overcomes cleverness. You have too many thoughts that you shouldn't have. It's harmful to yourself." Jiang Jiwan's throat choked. She suddenly stepped forward as if she wanted to grab the corner of Elder Huafeng's clothes. Elder Huafeng calmly took a step back and avoided her hand. Jiang Jiwan missed, and the snow splashed on her face, making her look even more miserable. "Elder Huafeng, I beg you, please give me another chance." Jiang Jiwan couldn't care about anything else at this time. She could only beg for mercy. Even if she could salvage a little, it would be good. "It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Please let me go this time." How could she be so stupid? She actually wanted to threaten Elder Huafeng to protect everything she had. Behind Elder Huafeng, there was still the entire Ling Xiao Academy backing him up. What did she have? Elder Huafeng seemed to be smiling, but his voice was very calm. "What's done can't be undone. How can you take back what you said?" Jiang Zhuan's body stiffened as if she was frozen inch by inch. She suddenly couldn't say the rest of her words. Other than being a joke, what was the use?
Elder Huafeng looked at her condescendingly, and then turned to look at Elder Danqing. From the beginning to the end, he didn't look over. It could be seen that he was really disappointed in Jiang Jiwan. Since you've been a student in the school for a few years, I can help you send a message back to the Immortal Water Mausoleum and ask them to send someone to pick you up as soon as possible. Oh, this is a piece of cake, so you don't have to thank me. With that, Elder Huafeng turned around and left with a smile. Jiang Jiwan's mind was in a mess. There was only one sentence left that kept lingering in her mind. It's over. It's completely over. I wonder what Jiang Jiwan did to be hated so much. Luo Shishir got on the teleportation formation and couldn't help but mutter when she caught a glimpse of Jiang Jiwan lying in the snow with a face full of despair. No matter what it is, it's not a good thing. Luo Yanlin smiled at the side. Elder Danqing treats her like a daughter and has always doted on her. To be able to force him to cut off their master-disciple relationship. That Jiang Jiwan is indeed capable. Luo Shishir nodded. Judging from the reactions of the other elders in the school, Jiang Jiwan probably wouldn't be able to stay in Lingxiao College after she returned. A good hand of cards has been played to a pulp. That's all there is to it. Thinking back to the past, Jiang Jiwan, how glorious and proud she was. But now, she was so hated by others in the future, it would be very difficult for her to have a place in the Divine Ruins world. I really don't know how she got to this point. Although Luo Shishir wasn't very familiar with her, she felt rather emotional when she thought of the great difference between her and before. Why are you thinking so much? Luo Yanlin gently knocked on her forehead. Whether she lives or dies has nothing to do with us. Just take a look. As the outstanding son of the Luo family who was very likely to inherit the position of the head of the family, Luo Yanlin had always been proud. He had never taken someone like Jiang Jiwan seriously. She was just a clown. Luo Shishir responded obediently. She curled her fingers and couldn't help but look in another direction. Even though there were so many people, she could still see Rongxiu at a glance. He was very tall, and when he stood in a crowd, he would always stand out like a crane among chickens. Not to mention that handsome and devilish face that seemed to have been meticulously carved by the heavens, at any time, seemed to gather all the splendor and brilliance, causing everything around him to dim in comparison. This teleportation formation wasn't small, but with so many people standing together, it was still a little crowded. However, there seemed to be an invisible barrier around Rongxiu, making it difficult for people to get close. Cold, noble, disdainful. It was as if standing closer would be blasphemy. Chu Yu was in his arms, and his appearance couldn't be seen clearly. Luo Shishir bit her lip. I wonder how Chu Yu is doing now. A better reading experience came from the Love Network. Chapter 1394. Luo Yanlin followed her line of sight and narrowed his eyes slightly. He and Rongxiu entered the academy around the same time, so they were of the same generation. However, they didn't interact much with each other. Of course, Rongxiu's personality was like that, and it was the same for others. Other than occasionally going out to train or carry out missions together, they would only meet a few times at the beginning of the month during the assessment. Ever since Rongxiu was ranked first on the Azure Sky Roll, he rarely came out. With Rongxiu taking care of him personally, nothing will happen to that kid, Luo Yanlin said as he took out a jade bottle and stuffed it into his sister's hand. You're so focused on him that you forgot to take your own medicine? His gaze fell on Luo Shishir meaningfully. Luo Shishir immediately felt guilty and quickly opened the jade bottle, poured out a pill, and ate it. No, I just feel that. Senior Rongxiu and Chu Yu have a good relationship. He has never treated anyone like this before, right? The Holy Son of the Yuntian Tower was known for his decisiveness and ruthlessness. Even in the academy, when he restrained his aura, he still made people feel that there was a distance between them. Luo Yanlin touched his chin. Actually, you can't say that. There was a person in the past, and Rongxiu treated that person like... At this point, he suddenly paused. Like what? Luo Shishir's eyes were filled with curiosity. Could it be that there was someone in the world who was better taken care of by Rongxiu?
That was truly unbelievable. Rongxiu was a natural king, like an iceberg that wouldn't melt for 1,000 years. It was difficult for others to even get close to him, let alone other things. It was hard to imagine that he would treat someone well. Now that he treated Chuyu like this, it was shocking enough. If there was something worse, then bam, Luo Yinlin knocked on her head again, this time with more force. Luo Shur hurriedly covered her forehead in pain. Fourth brother, little girl, there are some things you can ask, but there are some things you don't know, understand? Luo Yinlin warned with a smile, but his eyes were very serious. Luo Shur pursed her lips and muttered, "Got it." Luo Yinlin glanced over and quickly retracted his gaze. Everyone boarded the teleportation array and began their return journey. Everyone was in small groups, whispering to each other. Most of them were talking about the trip to the north of the primordial world, especially when Elder Huafeng, Elder Bo Yin, and the others gathered together and chatted even more seriously. After all, they still wanted to find out who was behind this. Lingxiao College had suffered a great loss this time, and they would not let it go so easily. Only Jiang Zhuan was left alone in the corner. No one spoke to her, making her seem very cold and cheerless. However, there were quite a number of people who kept looking at them in private. Most of them were mocking and ridiculing him, as if they were watching a good show. Jiang Zhuan lowered her head. She had to use all her strength to restrain the impulse in her heart. She couldn't go on like this. The outcome had already been decided. What awaited her was probably the worst possible outcome. If she still had anyone to rely on, suddenly, her eyes flickered. That's right. How could she forget that there was still that person? The journey back was dull and boring. In addition, everyone was more or less injured, so the atmosphere was gloomy. It was completely different from the excitement they had when they came. The waiting time seemed to have become exceptionally long. After an unknown period of time, a light finally appeared in front of them. Elder Bo Yin called out loudly, "We're about to return to the academy. Everyone get ready to go out." Yes. Immediately after, several elders made their moves together. The Shin formation at the exit suddenly split open from the middle. Elder Huafeng and the others rushed out one after another. Rongxiu looked at the person in his arms. Chu Luiwei was still asleep. However, compared to before, her pale and haggard face had regained a trace of rosy color, and she seemed to be much better. Moreover, the aura on her body was also faintly strengthening. Rongxiu's hand tightened slightly, and then, with a tap of his foot, his figure flew out quickly. "Huafeng, you're back." The elders who had been waiting around the teleportation formation for a long time were all energized when they saw them. Only the heavens knew how hard they had been waiting during this period of time. But soon, they realized that something was wrong. Elder Bo Yin and the others who followed behind him were actually more or less injured. It looked like they had just experienced a greater deal. "You guys, what happened to you guys?" The elders looked at each other and felt vaguely uneasy. Elder Huafeng shook his head. "It's a long story. First, send the students back to recuperate. We'll talk about other things later." Seeing his rare, serious expression, the elders didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly took action. Some of the students who were lightly injured obeyed and went back. There were also a few who were in more serious condition and were escorted back by the elders. The more they looked, the more shocked they became. Didn't they say that they would only ask Elder Huafeng and the others to support the heavenly square cauldron? How did it end up like this? Anyone could see that the situation was definitely much worse than they had expected. Rongxiu, when the tall and slender figure appeared, the faces of the elders were filled with astonishment. What did he go over there? What was even more shocking was that he was carrying someone in his arms. Chuyu. An elder stood close and recognized the person with sharp eyes. Because it was too unbelievable, the tone of his voice changed a little. Rongxiu nodded lightly at the elders and then walked forward. "I'll take her back to rest." Oh, okay." Before anyone could react, Rongxiu had already left with his people. "Hey, Rongxiu, wait for me." Elder Wanzheng hurriedly followed after him. Their figures quickly disappeared behind the undulating mountain peaks, leaving behind a bewildered expression on everyone's faces. After a long while, someone stammered, What's going on? Elder Bo Yin laughed bitterly. If only he knew. Moreover, he didn't want to figure out now. Inside, there would be a lot of problems. Rongxiu has always known his limits. Don't worry about him. Let's clean up this mess first. Hearing Elder Bo Yan's words, the others didn't ask any more questions and only responded in unison. Yes. Rongxiu directly brought Chu Luiyue back to his residence. After entering the room, he carefully put her down. Elder Wan Zheng hurriedly followed behind them. Rongxiu, how's Chuyu? Rongxiu covered her with a blanket and gently rubbed his finger on her soft hand twice before putting her hand under the blanket. This action was extremely subtle, and because his back was facing Elder Wan Zheng, the latter didn't notice. When Elder Wan Zheng walked over, Rongxiu straightened his body and placed a hand on Rongxiu's forehead. The fever seems to have subsided a little, but I don't know when she'll wake up. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1395. Why is there no sign of him waking up after such a long journey? Elder Wan Zheng's heart ached, and he was worried. The Chuyu he saw was always alive and kicking, cunning, and quick-witted. However, the Chuyu now lay quietly and weakly on the bed. He was as fragile as glass that would shatter at the slightest touch. How can this be? What did this child go through? Rongxiu paused and tucked Chu Luiyue in. Elder Wan Zheng, let's talk outside. He would disturb her if he stayed. Elder Wan Zheng quickly nodded in agreement. Yes, let's go outside and let him rest. He deliberately lowered his voice when he said this, as if he was afraid that he would disturb Chu Luiyue. Rongxiu's thin lips curled up slightly. Please go ahead. Elder Wan Zheng was very reluctant. He looked back 3 times with every step. It was only when Rongxiu said that he had set up a Xian formation that he would know immediately if anything happened inside that Elder Wan Zheng was relieved. The two of them walked out and sat down on the stone bench in the courtyard. I know you have a lot of questions. If there's anything you want to ask, just say it. Rongxiu will tell you everything he knows. After sitting down, Rongxiu went straight to the point. He was very sincere in front of Elder Wan Zheng. If it was someone else, it would have been fine. However, Elder Wan Zheng was Chu Luiyue's master now. He was one of the people who had the most right to care about her. Elder Wan Zheng was indeed full of questions. There were too many things he wanted to ask. However, when he heard Rongxiu's words, he did not know where to start. After thinking seriously for a while, he sorted out his thoughts and finally asked, How's Chu Yu's condition now? He had been in such a hurry that he had forgotten to take Chu Yu's pulse personally. However, Rongxiu was also a celestial physician. He was also the one who brought Chu Yu back. He should know better. Rongxiu said, Don't worry about that. Her body is fine. Although he had suffered some injuries before, he could recover quickly after recuperating for a period of time. He paused slightly. After all, as you know, she just broke through to the 9th stage. At this time, the recovery ability and so on were all very strong. Not to mention her. Hearing this, Elder Wan Zheng let out a sigh of relief. He clenched and loosened his hand. Countless complicated emotions flashed through his eyes. In the end, he could only shake his head and sigh. I don't know whether I should be worried about him or happy for him. In just a few days, Chu Yu had broken through from a rank 8 warrior to a rank 9 warrior. He had already heard about it from Elder Huafeng. It was just that he was more worried at that time, so he didn't think too much about it. Now that everyone had returned and Chu Yu's condition seemed to have stabilized, he finally realized how shocking this matter was. How many people in the world could encounter such a fortuitous encounter? This time, so many people went to the northern border of the great desolate land, but in the end, they all returned in failure. Only Chu Yu, who didn't even have the time to follow at the beginning, became the winner. This brat's luck is really extraordinary. When he woke up and thought about it, Elder Wan Zheng could only use the word luck to describe this matter. He was already shocked enough when he saw that kid break through to the 8th stage with his own eyes. He didn't expect that not long after, he would actually according to his speed, he might suddenly break through to the divine realm and become a divine rank expert one day. Elder Wanzheng relaxed a little and couldn't help but tease. Rongxiu's eyes drooped slightly as his thin lips curled up. Maybe. Anyway, as long as he's fine, this old man's heart will be at ease. Elder Wanzheng wiped the sweat off his forehead. By the way, Hua Feng and the others said that Chuyi was called away by a group of mysterious men in black. Do you know anything about it? After all, he was saved by Rongxiu. If there was anyone who knew anything, it would be him. Rongxiu shook his head and said the same thing as before. When I went, I didn't see their so-called master. Moreover, the other party was very cunning and didn't leave any clues. This is difficult. Elder Wanzheng frowned. If that's the case, we can only wait for Chuyu to wake up before we can find out anything. But who knew when he would wake up? Rongxiu smiled. You don't have to worry. I will take good care of him during this period of time. When he wakes up, perhaps, everything will have an answer. Elder Wanzheng nodded. That's the only way. All right, there's one more thing. As he spoke, he looked at Rongxiu hesitantly. You and Chuyu, what is your relationship? Elder Wanzheng was very conflicted when he asked this question. Previously, he only thought that the two of them were close friends. Rongxiu took care of Chuyu as his younger brother. But judging from his situation in the past few days, it was clear that Rongxiu's eyes flickered. There seemed to be waves in his deep, almond-shaped eyes. After a long while, his lips curled into a smile. She is very important to me. To be more precise, she was the most important person to him. Elder Wanzheng was stunned. It was very rare for Rongxiu to say something like this. After all, this was a person who could kill the people of the Yuntian Tower without blinking an eye. Rongxiu obviously didn't want to reveal too much, so Elder Wanzheng knew that he shouldn't ask anymore. He thought about Rongxiu's words carefully several times in his heart and finally looked at him. That's good. As long as Rongxiu could protect him, what else did it matter? According to Chuyu's character, he might get into trouble in the future. Just like this time, those people didn't choose anyone and only took him away. If it wasn't for Rongxiu, he really didn't know what the result would be. Elder Wanzheng stood up. Everyone has just returned, and there are many things to deal with. During this period, it should be more chaotic outside. I'll have to trouble you to take care of Chuyu. Rongxiu also stood up and nodded slightly. Don't worry. The entire Lingxiao College was indeed chaotic. More than 300 students and elders had walked on the line of life and death. They had almost been completely wiped out in the primordial north region. This was something that the college had never encountered in hundreds of years. In addition to comforting everyone, Elder Bo Yin and the others had already started to investigate this matter. The main point was the news of the appearance of the heavenly square sacred cauldron. Where did it come from? The person who spread this fake news was basically the mastermind behind this. The atmosphere of the entire college became tense. Everyone was on high alert. Even the air seemed to have frozen. And in this serious and cold atmosphere, something else happened that caused waves in everyone's hearts. Jiang Zhuan of the Jiang family of the Immortal Water Hill was officially expelled from Lingxiao College. Digression, 6:00 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1396. Thanks to Elder Hua Feng's enthusiastic help, the Immortal Water Mausoleum received the news immediately. Jiang Hetian rushed to the school as fast as he could. Lingxiao College was in a critical period and was heavily guarded. No one could enter or leave as they pleased. According to Elder Bo Yin, they should have sent Jiang Zhuan out of the school and let the Jiang family pick her up from Fong State City. However, considering that the matter was blown out of proportion and would be bad for the school's reputation, they let her in. Of course, only Jiang Hetian was allowed to enter the school. The rest of the Jiang family who came with him were all kept out of the barrier. Jiang Hetian felt deeply humiliated, but with the matter at hand, he couldn't care less. In a hall in the school, as soon as Jiang Hetian entered, he saw several elders seated. His precious daughter, Jiang Zhuan, was standing alone in the middle of the hall. The atmosphere was stagnant and seemed to be freezing.
Jiang Hetian's heart sank. This atmosphere was enough to explain too many things. Jiang Hetian of the Immortal Water Mausoleum greets the elders. He suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and bowed politely, as usual. Hearing the voice, Jiang Jiwon trembled and slowly turned around. The father and daughter looked at each other. Jiang Hetian's heart trembled violently, because the current Jiang Jiwon was too haggard and disheveled. Her face, neck, and even wrists were clearly marked with scars. Her bright, watery eyes were bloodshot and even a little sluggish. There were dark circles under her eyes, and it was obvious that she didn't sleep well. Ziyuan, Jiang Hetian's heart ached. He hurried a few steps to Jiang Jiwon's side. "Ew, what happened to you?" Seeing his anxious face, Jiang Jiwon's nose twitched, and she couldn't help but cry. "Father, I'm sorry." Her reaction made Jiang Hetian even more worried and nervous. He patted her shoulder lightly and whispered a few comforting words. "Don't worry, I'll definitely uphold justice for you this time." As he spoke, he took a step forward and cupped his hands at the elders present. "Elders, if you want to remove Ziyuan's name, you should at least give a reason, right? What's going to happen to her in the future?" In a message that Lingxiao College had sent to him, they had only mentioned that they would be expelled, but they had not explained the reason. This was what puzzled him the most. He knew that not long ago, Wei Shiping's name had also been removed. However, everyone knew the reason. Even now, Wei Shiping did not have the face to return to the Qinggu family way. But when it came to them, how could they be so muddle-headed? He had to get an explanation. Elder Hua Feng smiled. "Patriarch Jiang, it must have been hard for you to come all the way here. Why don't you sit down and talk?" Jiang Hetian refused. "I won't be sitting. Elders, if you have something to say, just say it." He was so angry that he didn't even want to give her any face. However, Elder Hua Feng didn't care about this at all. He nodded and did not continue to persuade him. "Patriarch Jiang, to be honest, it's because we want to save some face for you and the Immortal Water Tomb that we didn't announce the reason. If you must know, why don't you ask Jiang Jiwon yourself?" Jiang Hetian's heart sank when he heard this. The other party's attitude was so calm. Could it be that Jiang Jiwon really did something wrong? "Oh, right. There's something that you might not know yet." Elder Hua Feng reminded him. Before she was expelled, Elder Danxing took the lead in severing his master-disciple relationship with her. These words were undoubtedly adding insult to injury. Jiang Hetian was originally full of anger, but when he heard these words, he couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. He looked at Jiang Jiwon suspiciously. "Ziyuan, what's going on?" Jiang Jiwon knelt on the ground with a plop. "Father, I was just confused for a moment. Please help me beg the elders and master. I don't want to leave the academy. I can't be expelled." Her tearful appearance made Jiang Hetian's remaining half of his heart turn cold. "If you don't want to say it, this old man will." Elder Danxing, who had been silent, finally spoke. His gaze slowly swept over Jiang Ziyuan's body. His tone was calm, as if he was just talking about an unimportant matter. "At that time, we arrived at the northern border of the primordial world together and were attacked halfway. Jiang Jiwon betrayed us in order to survive alone." Jiang Jiwon's face turned ashen. "At that time, all of us planned to split into two groups and escape separately. Jiang Jiwon was the first to be caught by the other party, and then she told the other party everything. Then, while the other party wasn't paying attention, she ran away alone." With every word that Elder Danxing said, Jiang Jiwon's despair surged up a little more, and in the end, she was completely swallowed up. She's quite lucky. After such a torment, she actually managed to survive. However, I heard that also caused a lot of trouble for Hua Feng and the others. Compared to what you guys did, we're nothing." Elder Hua Feng waved his hand as if he didn't care. "She just killed a nine-tailed blue crow and almost caused us to die under the claws of the nine-tailed blue crows." This understatement of sarcasm made Jiang Hetian feel as if a fishbone was stuck in his throat, and his face turned green and white. Elder Danxing looked at him and sipped his tea unhurriedly. "Now, Patriarch Jiang, do you still want an explanation?" Peng Min Mountain.
It was as quiet as ever. Even though the outside was turbulent, no one dared to come here to disturb them. Inside the tower, in an empty room, the 7 fan doors floated quietly. A faint glow shone on the black jade floor, pure and holy. Suddenly, a slight fluctuation came from one of the doors. This movement immediately attracted Elder Meng's attention. A deep and old voice sounded in the room, with a hint of puzzlement. As time passed, the ripples on the door gradually grew stronger. Even the entire door frame started to tremble slightly. It was as if something was about to rush out. Could it be that the girl is back? Elder Meng's voice was filled with shock and surprise. Other than her, no one else could cause such a commotion. But why wasn't there any news from outside? If that girl was really back, Bo Yin and the others should have come to tell him long ago. Dong! The power inside began to hit the door, as if it was trying to break free. As expected, you're still as restless as her. Elder Meng snorted softly. An invisible and majestic force suddenly converged from all directions, enveloping the door within. Being suppressed, the fluctuation on the door gradually decreased. However, after a moment of silence, there was another sound of impact from behind the door. Dong dong, dong dong. One sound, one after another, was extremely rhythmic. In the calmness, there was passion and intensity. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1397. In the end, Jiang Hetian still left Lingxiao College with Jiang Jiwan. The father and daughter came out of the hall and walked to the boundary of the college without saying a word. Elder Huafeng originally planned to send them off, but in the end, Jiang Hetian declined. After being humiliated to this extent, he really didn't have the face to face these Lingxiao College elders anymore. The only thing he wanted to do now was to take Jiang Jiwan and leave this place as soon as possible. In the middle, there were a few students who bumped into this scene, but they just stood there and pointed. They didn't have the slightest intention of coming over to say hello or say goodbye. Those scattered strange gazes and sarcastic mockery were like a nightmare, shrouding the hearts of Jiang Ziwan and her father, and they couldn't get rid of it. The 2 elders in charge of guarding the boundary didn't deliberately make things difficult for them. After seeing that it was them, they simply responded and opened the boundary. Jiang Hetian took the lead and stepped out. He couldn't stay in this place for a moment longer. Jiang Jiwan stood in place, but dilly-dallied. She was somewhat reluctant to part with them. She couldn't help but look back. The towering Dongwang Bell Tower, the wide and clean Qingming Square, and the rolling mountains filled with the force of heaven and earth at this moment. A figure appeared on the Dongwang Bell Tower. Elder Bo Yin. He waved his long sleeves, and on the black wall of the Dongwang Bell Tower, the Qingyun ranking appeared. Countless names that were emitting a faint glow were shining on it. That was glory and also glory. Many people in the college looked over. Jiang Jiwan saw her name. But in the next moment, those 3 words quickly dimmed, as if drifting with the wind. Removed in public. This was the greatest humiliation he had ever suffered. Jiang Jiwan staggered and almost fell to the ground. A wave of unwillingness and resentment surged in her heart. Jiang Jiwan's hands couldn't help but clench in her sleeves. She had stayed here for several years. How could she not be reluctant to leave? It was precisely because of her outstanding performance in Lingxiao College that she could be looked up to and envied by everyone. But from today onwards, everything would vanish in a thin air. The pride, the glory, the praise. Everything would be reduced to nothing. Originally, she should have gotten the best, Yuan. Jiang Hetian could not help but urge. His voice was a little cold, as if he was forcibly suppressing something. Jiang Jiwan came back to her senses and quickly turned around. He's here. However, just as he took a step forward, he was stopped by another elder. Wait. Jiang Jiwan looked up blankly. The other party stretched out a hand. His face was expressionless, and his tone was businesslike. Since you've been expelled from the academy, your pass will also be confiscated. Jiang Jiwan felt extremely embarrassed.
This feeling of being chased out mercilessly like a stray dog. How disgusting. She had never thought that she would have such a day. But no matter how dissatisfied she was, she didn't dare to go against the other party's wishes. She took out her black jade token and handed it over. The other party took the token, but found that Jiang Juan was still holding it tightly. He frowned impatiently. It's time to let go. Huh? Oh. Jiang Juan was extremely reluctant, but she could only retreat as if her hand had been scalded. Then take care of yourselves, elders. I'll leave with my father first. Before she could finish, the two elders had already waved their sleeves and closed the barrier. The rest of Jiang Juan's words were stuck in her throat, and she couldn't say anything else. Jiang Hetian's expression finally turned completely cold. Jiang Juan was humiliated, but how could he not be implicated? The other party's expression was clearly thrown at him and his daughter, as well as the entire mausoleum of immortals. However, the one who was in the wrong was Jiang Juan. Lingxiao College had already been extremely benevolent by not publicizing the reason. Let's go. Jiang Hetian turned to leave, his expression cold. Jiang Jiwan trembled. All these years, her father had never treated her like this. Her heart clenched. She felt that during this period of time, she had really suffered all the hardships and grievances of her life. Father, Jiang Hetian shot her an extremely cold look. If you have anything to say it when we get back. Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? Jiang Ziwan was dumbfounded by the words that hit her in the face. The fire in her heart that had been suppressed for so long finally burst forth. I'm not going back. You're not going back. Jiang Hetian couldn't help but sneer. Then where do you want to go? Don't tell me you're still delusional about going back to Lingxiao College. After being expelled from Lingxiao College, one could imagine her situation in the world of gods from now on. He had invested so much energy and resources in her, but now it was all for naught. He still didn't know how to face those troublesome fellows in the mausoleum of immortals when he returned. Jiang Jiwan took a deep breath. I want to go to the Yuntian Tower. Jiang Hetian froze, his brows furrowed. Why are you going to Yuntian Tower? Running away is not a solution, I'm not running away. Jiang Juan ran her fingers through her hair, her tone unusually firm. Father, I want to go to the Patriarch. Jiang Hetian finally realized something. But the Patriarch has been in seclusion for several years. What's the use of you going now? Then I'll wait until the Patriarch comes out. In any case, it was not appropriate for her to go anywhere, so she might as well wait. Now, the only person who could help her was the Patriarch. And only when she went to the Yuntian Tower would the Liang family have some scruples. Even if they wanted to do something to her, they had to get past this hurdle first. Rongxiu was unwilling to help her, but it didn't mean that she couldn't rely on the Yuntian Tower. Jiang Hetian's expression finally softened a little. This was indeed the best solution at the moment. Are you sure you can stay there and wait for the Patriarch to come out? Jiang Jiwan nodded firmly. As long as you go to the honorable elders and plead with them to send me there, it'll be fine. Also, I might be able to investigate Shang Yu's background. You still want to investigate that? Jiang Hetian disagreed. The people who were sent to investigate the Shang Yu had never returned. What could Jiang Jiwan find out on her own? In the end, she could only alert the enemy. You should take care of yourself first. Jiang Jiwan was taken aback by her father's reaction, but she still followed his advice. I understand. Jiang Hetian looked at his daughter's submissive expression and felt both heartache and anger. Forget it. Let's go to the Yuntian Tower. But if you continue to be like this... He swung his sleeves and turned to leave. Jiang Jiwan suppressed the surging emotions in her heart and quickly followed him. On the other hand, Rongxiu sent Elder Wanzheng away. He stood halfway up the mountain with his hands behind his back. The removal of Jiang Jiwan's name from the Dongwang Clock Tower caused quite a commotion in the academy. Everyone gathered in groups of 3 to 5, talking about something. Rongxiu's expression did not change. He looked up slightly and looked at the top of the tower. There was a name that had been erased. There was a surging undercurrent inside. Digression. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock,
mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1398. Lingxiao College began to deal with the follow-up matters. On the other side, many aristocratic families and clans who were still in the northern region of the primitive wilderness finally realized that something was wrong. The huge tomb was surrounded by a crowd of people. It was quiet. Finally, someone couldn't help but stand up. Forget it. If any of you want to continue staying here, you can continue to stay here. I won't keep you company. This sentence instantly broke the precarious balance on the scene. Everyone looked over and couldn't help but feel nervous. Jean D glanced at him coldly and snorted. What? You can't stand it anymore? Didn't they say that they would open the barrier together? Now you want to quit? Fine. It's up to you. With one less person, there would be less competition. The other party didn't show any weakness. Jean D, don't be too optimistic. There are so many of us. How long have we been here? Haven't we made any progress? I think ordinary people can't enter this damn place at all. Staying here is just a waste of energy. Jean D's face became a little ugly, because he knew that the other party was telling the truth. Many people looked at each other. In fact, after such a long time, they had already been nervous, but they were too embarrassed to speak first, as if they were afraid of someone. Now that someone finally spoke first, they immediately relaxed their mental defenses and became active. That's not unreasonable. Even if there are really treasures in here, it's useless if we can't get in. What's more, Chu has already gone into plunder. Who knows what leftovers are left? That's right. We can't wait anymore. We've wasted so much energy and time for nothing. Instead of waiting for an illusory opportunity here, it's better to go back and concentrate on cultivation. More and more people began to loosen up. Jean D was a little flustered. If they all left, the Golden Wings sect alone would not be able to open the barrier. Of course, even if they worked together, it seemed to be useless. He glanced at the barrier with hatred. By the way, it's been so long. Why hasn't there been any news from the people of Lingxiao College? The sudden sentence made everyone quiet for a moment. Indeed, they had been waiting here for several days, but the people from Lingxiao College had not returned. He didn't know how they were doing now. And Chu Yu, who was taken away by the black-clothed man, they have gone back. A cold voice suddenly came from the crowd. Everyone looked over in unison. The one who spoke was the man leading the group from Mount Lingyun. How do you know? There are so many things in the northern region of the primordial wilderness that we haven't figured out yet. How could they just leave like that? Jean D asked skeptically. Don't tell me you're just trying to fool us? The man put away the things in his hands and stood up. The Liang family had already started investigating Liang Shaokong's death. Those people from Lingxiao College had obviously gone back a long time ago, but fortunately, they still kept their word and did not expose the Spirit Charm Mountain. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. It was better to return as soon as possible and make preparations early. The group of people behind him also gathered together. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Our Lingyun Mountain will not participate in this liveliness. Please do as you please. After saying this, the man happily turned around and left with his men. The people who were left behind were stunned. Wasn't this too sudden? The figures of the people from Mount Lingyun quickly disappeared. With one side taking the lead, it was much easier for the rest to leave. Even Lingxiao College has left. Then, is there something wrong with this place? Why don't we leave too? There's really no point in staying here. As they spoke, the various forces began to leave one after another. Jean D originally wanted to resist for a while longer, but seeing that everyone had left, he felt a little guilty. Therefore, after half a day, he tried a few more times and found that he really couldn't do anything to the barrier, so he could only give up. In the end, he left with his men. At this point, the surroundings of the tomb finally quieted down again. The wind howled, and snow fell from the sky again. The 9 dragon skeletons were motionless in the canyon, as if they had completely died. Only the silver barrier outside the tomb was flickering. It was as if something was about to wake up from its deep sleep. Mount Jiuheng. Time passed slowly.
Chu Liyue had already been lying in bed for 3 days. She was completely unaware of everything that had happened outside. A barrier isolated all the noise outside. During these 3 days, Rongxiu had always been by her side. Every morning, Elder Wanzheng would come once to check on Chu Liyue's situation. Seeing that she hadn't woken up, Elder Wanzheng became more and more anxious. However, in comparison, Rongxiu didn't seem to be so anxious. Elder Wanzheng could only temporarily suppress the emotions in his heart and wait patiently with them. Fortunately, Chu Liyue's physical condition was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye, and vaguely, the aura on her body was still strengthening. Elder Wanzheng only thought that it was because she had broken through in the primordial north and obtained that opportunity, so he didn't take it to heart. This kid was already able to break through from a rank 8 warrior to a rank 9 warrior in a few days. No matter what happened, it didn't seem to be shocking anymore. It was a pity that Chu Liyue hadn't woken up, so the Academy's investigation of the primordial north couldn't be carried out. However, with Rongxiu around, they couldn't disturb her and could only wait outside day by day. Chu Liyue felt that she had a long dream. In the dream, she had another name and another identity. She kept hearing someone calling her. Although she couldn't hear clearly what was being called, she knew that it was her. There seemed to be someone by her side all the time. She wanted to see the other person's appearance clearly, but she couldn't. Vaguely, she felt that this person seemed to be somewhat similar to Rongxiu, but it didn't feel completely the same. She felt a little puzzled and frowned. Later, she dreamed of a very strange scene. It was a snowy day. Goose feather-like snow fell. The world was covered in white snow, as if it had covered everything. Only one place had a special scenery. Many peach blossoms bloomed quietly in the ice and snow. The light pink petals swayed gently in the cold wind, and the stamen emitted a faint fragrance. With a light sniff, it refreshed one's heart. Against the pure silvery white background, these balls of pink looked especially lively and pleasing. Snowflakes fell on the petals, sparkling and translucent. She turned around and smiled at that person. "Look, I told you that peach blossoms can bloom in winter." That person seemed to chuckle softly and walk toward her. Closer and closer. Clang! A sound suddenly shattered all of the illusions. Chu Liyue suddenly opened her eyes. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1399. She sat up and looked in the direction of the sound. The door opened a crack, and a big furry head poked in. Its movements suddenly stopped, and it looked helplessly at the teacup that had suddenly fallen in front of it. Clearly, it didn't expect that its subtle movements would cause such a big commotion. Who would have thought that someone would put a teacup on an unlocked door? Tui, someone was too much. As if it sensed her gaze, it slowly turned its stiff neck and looked in her direction. A human and a beast looked at each other. A pair of icy blue eyes widened slightly, and there was some nervousness in them. Then it blinked. Awake, awake. Looking at Shue's dazed expression, Chu Liyue couldn't help but laugh out loud, and she waved at it. Shue, why are you in a daze? Come here. Roar. Shue let out an excited roar, and it quickly pounced on Chu Liyue. With a vigorous leap, it directly jumped from the door into Chu Liyue's arms. It was about to hug her. A cold and deep voice came from outside the door. Shue immediately became alert, and it slammed on the brakes. It actually stopped half an inch in front of Chu Liyue. Its big head almost hit Chu Liyue's face. The scene seemed to have frozen. Chu Liyue looked at the wet nose in front of her, and the pair of icy blue eyes that were filled with panic and guilt, and the corners of her eyes twitched slightly. A well-defined hand appeared on the door, and then it slowly pushed it open. Rongxiu walked in. It seemed to be evening at this time, and the afterglow of the setting sun shone on him with a faint golden glow, making him look like a god that had walked out of a painting. His deep and clear phoenix eyes looked at Chu Liyue, and his thin scarlet lips curled up slightly. You're awake?" When he heard the commotion, he had already guessed it and immediately came in. Chu Liyue looked at his face.
The light behind him enveloped his face, and it was as clear as jade, but it also seemed to be covered by a layer of veil that couldn't be seen through. Rong Xiao. She tilted her head. I dreamed of you. Rong Xiao's eyes moved slightly, and he walked over. His footsteps were calm, and his whole body was cold and noble. Is that so? Standing by the bed, he glanced at Shue's body. Shue shuddered and tactfully turned around to leave, running away like a wisp of smoke. Chu Luiyue, what did you dream of? Asked Rong Xiao softly as he sat down by the bed and held her hand. Chu Luiyue stared at him fixedly as if she wanted to see something from his eyes. She smiled. I dreamt. I took you to see the peach blossoms blooming in winter. Rong Xiao's expression didn't change, but there seemed to be waves in the depths of his eyes. Was it beautiful? He held her face with one hand, and the corners of his mouth curled up. A warm breath came from his palm, with deep affection and gentleness. Chu Yue's heart skipped a beat, and she suddenly felt a strong sense of fatigue. She held Rong Xiao's hand and gently pressed her face against it. Rong Xiao was slightly stunned. In the next moment, Chu Luiyue looked up at him again. Perhaps it was because she had just woken up, or perhaps it was because the dream was too complicated, and it made her physically and mentally exhausted. Her voice became lazy and slightly elongated, and there was a hint of softness and coquettishness in it. Rong Xiao, she spoke in a low voice, but it was like a long silk thread that gently wrapped around his heart. His heart suddenly softened. He moved closer, took her into his arms, and kissed her between her eyebrows. It's beautiful when I look at it with you, Chu Luiyue muttered. Her voice wasn't loud, but he heard it clearly. He couldn't help but laugh, and even the corners of his eyes and eyebrows had a hint of a smile. Really? Chu Luiyue leaned on his shoulder and nodded gently. I don't know why, but I can't see your face clearly in my dreams. Rong Xiao paused and pinched her delicate earlobe. I'm right here. You can look at me however you want. Chu Luiyue leaned in his arms for a while, and when she felt that her physical and mental strength had recovered, she propped herself up. She looked at him, and her eyes were as bright as stars. Suddenly, she leaned forward and quickly kissed him on the lips. You're right. He was hers, and he was right here. What was there to be conflicted about? Rong Xiao's eyes suddenly darkened. However, just as he was about to continue, Chu Luiyue suddenly said, Rong Xiao, can you do me a favor? Rong Xiao paused. What favor? Chu Luiyue looked hesitant. I want to go to Mount Pengmin. Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Why? No reason. Chu Luiyue said, took half a step back, and was about to lift the quilt and get up. Halfway through lifting the quilt, she suddenly stopped. Then, she slowly raised her head and looked at Rong Xiao in a daze. How long have I slept? She vaguely knew that she was carried back to Mount Jiuheng by Rong Xiao from the northern region of the primitive land, but she didn't remember how much time she had experienced on the way. Rong Xiao looked calm. 7 days. The corners of Chu Yue's eyes twitched crazily. She swallowed hard and asked word by word. Then, my clothes for the past 7 days, I helped you change your clothes, and I fed you tea and pills. Rong Xiao seemed to know what she wanted to ask, and he answered smoothly. He suddenly approached and put his hands on Chu Yue's side. Chu Luiyue instinctively moved backward and only stopped when her back touched the head of the bed. Rong Xiao quietly closed in, and the distance between the two of them rapidly shortened. Finally, they breathed. There seemed to be thousands of streams of light flowing in his eyes, which was intoxicating. Any woman in the world would find it difficult to break free from such a deep gaze. Then, Chu Yue's face suddenly became hot, and her whole body was hot. The blood on my body, those dirty blood stains naturally have to be washed away as soon as possible. Otherwise, the wound will become inflamed and even fester, won't it? Rong Xiao continued her words. No one else in the academy can do this, so I can only do it personally. You don't want your identity to be exposed, right? He was very close, and when he spoke, his warm breath sprayed on her slender neck and ears. It was like a spark starting a prairie fire. Chu Luiyue didn't hear his words clearly for a moment, and only felt like something was gently scratching her heart, making her a little distracted. Don't worry. In order to let your wound recover as soon as possible, I will help you every day for the next few days. Chu Luiyue finally couldn't listen anymore. She grabbed the front of his clothes, pulled him over, and kissed him. There seemed to be flames burning in her eyes, warm and bright. Let's see what else you can say. Rong Xiu suddenly sighed softly, and his words were unclear. Actually, it's been hard on me. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1400. It's been hard on me, too. Chu Yue's face seemed to be on fire. It was almost boiling hot. Was she sleeping too deeply these days? Or was Rong Xiu's movements so gentle that she didn't notice? Rong Xiu. It was rare for Chu Luiyue to feel embarrassed. Rong Xiu saw that her face was red from teasing, so he finally stopped and left reluctantly. He held her hand and intertwined their fingers. We're already engaged. We're just short of a big wedding, aren't we? If you think it's impossible, then you help me? Chu Luiyue didn't know how to respond. This man's heart, liver, spleen, and lungs were really black, and his skin was getting thicker by the day. She took a deep breath, snorted softly, and glared at him. In your dreams. Immediately, she was finally able to get up. At this moment, she realized that the snow-white underwear on her body didn't seem to be her clothes. As if seeing her doubts, Rong Xiu kindly explained, I have some spare clothes. It's just that. They're all from a few months ago, and now they don't quite fit. At this point, he glanced at her body with an extremely indifferent gaze. Although these were modeled after men's clothes, and the underwear was looser, it still couldn't hide the girl's exquisite figure. Her stillness and movement were breathtaking. He vaguely felt a little hot, so he automatically looked away, one hand unconsciously loosening his collar. Make do with them first. I'll get them to send new ones over in a few days. Chu Luiyue, you've been preparing clothes for me? He even prepared underwear. Rong Xiu didn't deny it and said frankly, you're growing. You're still growing, so it's natural for you to change your clothes often. It's supposed to be changed once a month, but you've been staying in the academy recently, so they didn't send them over for the time being. After all, she was still 16 or 17 years old. In such a short period of time, she had undergone amazing changes. Rong Xiu calmly rubbed his fingers, and there seemed to be a lingering fragrance on his fingertips. Chu Luiyue felt that she couldn't stay in this room any longer. She searched around and found that the previous clothes were all gone. Thinking about it, those clothes were full of bloodstains, so she couldn't take them back. She took out a red robe from the universe ring and put it on, with a black jade belt around her waist. With her hair tied up, from afar, she looked like an elegant young man, except for her exceedingly beautiful face. Chu Luiyue looked at herself in the bronze mirror and sized herself up. It's not good to wear that mask all the time, so I'll only help you wear it for a while when elders. As Rong Xiu spoke, he flicked his wrist, and the thin mask flew to Chu Luiyue and gently landed on the ground. Chu Luiyue reached out and caught it. She wanted to put on her face, but she paused after thinking about it. She looked up at herself in the bronze mirror again. She hadn't looked at her face so carefully for a long time. A few months had passed, and her appearance seemed to have changed slightly. Her eyes were more delicate and beautiful, and the contours of her cheeks were clearer. All in all, she looked more and more like the Shangguan Yu of the past. She remembered that when she was this age in her previous life, her appearance seemed to be 70 to 80% similar to her current appearance. Coupled with her expression, it was even more similar. A thought suddenly flashed through Chu Luiyue's mind. Would she become exactly the same as her old self in a few years? But how could there be someone who was exactly the same in this world? Chu Luiyue lowered her eyes slightly to hide the emotions in her eyes and carefully put the mask back on. Yes or no, she would know when the time came. After checking her body from head to toe and confirming that there were no problems, Chu Luiyue turned to look at Rong Xiu. Will you help me with the previous favor? She was talking about the matter of Mount Pengmin. Rong Xiu's breath froze slightly, and then he smiled at her. I will do my best to help you.
After Chu Luiyue packed up, she went to find Elder Wanzhong. After all, he was her master, and he had worked hard for her during this period of time. She had to go over and greet him. And the news of her waking up was also known by Elder Bo Yin, because it was Rong Xiu who came personally to tell him. What? You want Chu Yu to enter Mount Pingmin? Elder Bo Yin stopped what he was doing and closed the thick book with a puzzled look. He just woke up, and his body should still be very weak, right? Isn't it inappropriate to go to Mount Pingmin at this time? Besides, that place has always been the place where students who have made mistakes have been imprisoned. He's fine, so there's no reason for him to. You don't have to worry about that. You know that he just broke through to the stage 9 martial artist. Besides, it's a stretch to say that she didn't do anything wrong. She originally didn't have the qualifications to follow Elder Hua Feng on this trip to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land, but she still went in the end. Furthermore, after she went, she also caused a lot of trouble. Being imprisoned in Mount Pingmin is not a punishment, but a warning. Rong Xiu knew that Elder Bo Yin would not agree to this easily, so he had already prepared an excuse. Elder Bo Yin fell into deep thought and was still hesitant. But in the end, this matter should be blamed on Hua Feng. After all, without his permission, Chu Yu couldn't have gone. As for what happened after that, it wasn't actually Chu Yu's own will. Elder Bo Yin didn't really want to put all the blame on Chu Luiyue alone. He frowned and looked at Rong Xiu with uncertainty. Rong Xiu, there should be another reason why you want him to go to Mount Pingmin, right? Based on Rong Xiu's attitude towards Chu Yu, he definitely wasn't here to punish him this time. Rong Xiu paused for a moment. Yes, Mount Pingmin is indeed dangerous, but the most dangerous place is often the safest place. A faint smile appeared on his face. I just need a period of time. On the other side, Elder Wanzhong was overjoyed when he saw Chu Luiyue. He pulled her over and sized her up a few times. After confirming that her small body had really recovered and that there were no other problems, he finally relaxed. Stinking brat. This sleep scared your master half to death. Elder Wanzhong was usually a rather serious person. Now that he said such words, it could be seen that he was deeply affected by Chu Luiyue. There was nothing he could do. When he thought of her lying in Rong Xiu's arms with a pale and haggard face, his heart tightened. All these years, he had searched and searched, and it wasn't easy for him to find this disciple. How could he not feel heartache when something happened? Chu Luiyue's heart warmed. Master, don't worry, I'm fine. Wanzhong. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded. The two of them turned around and saw a barefoot old man waving a cattail leaf fan flying over. Elder Mengyi. Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly skipped a beat. If I remember correctly, Elder Mengyi said that when Elder Wanzhong returned, he would show him the bill. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1401. Mengyi, why are you here? Elder Wanzhong was in a good mood at this moment. When he looked at Elder Mengyi, he was all smiles. Of course, I'm here to deliver something to you. Elder Mengyi shouted with great vigor. As he spoke, he had already arrived in front of Elder Wanzhong. The moment he landed, he took a closer look and saw Chu Luiyue standing beside him. He was pleasantly surprised at first. Then, he thought of something and his smile turned meaningful. Yo-ho, Chu Yu, you're here too? Why? Have you recovered? Chu Luiyue sighed inwardly. It seemed like the entire academy already knew that she had been unconscious for such a long time. Thank you for your concern, Elder Mengyi. Chu Luiyue bowed obediently. I just woke up today, and my body is much better. I wanted to pay my master a visit, but I didn't expect to meet you here. May I know how Elder Mengyi is doing? Elder Mengyi flapped his fan and laughed. Good, of course. He was staying in the academy and taking care of the Medicine Wind Valley. How could he not be doing well? The ones who weren't doing well were those who went to the north of the wilderness. Right, Wanzhong. I'm here today to deliver something to you. Elder Mengyi chuckled. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. She suddenly had the thought of leaving. Master, Elder Mengyi, please take your time. I won't disturb you any longer. Elder Wanzhong hurriedly said. Hey, why are you leaving so soon? We haven't had a proper talk yet. Chu Yue's mouth twitched. If she continued to stay, they wouldn't be able to have a proper talk. Elder Meng Yi chuckled. If the child wants to leave, just let him go. He has just recovered, and he has many things to do. Don't you think so, Chuyu? Chu Lua nodded seriously. It seemed like Elder Meng Yi didn't intend to push her into a corner. However, Elder Wanzheng wasn't willing to do so. Even if you have something to do, you have to step back. She was his precious disciple. Who didn't she have to step back? Meng Yi, what did you say you were going to give me? Elder Meng Yi clenched his fist and coughed dryly. It's nothing much. Elder Wanzheng had a strange look on his face. Meng Yi usually stayed in Medicine Wind Valley and rarely came out. Normally, they would only be willing to leave that place when there was an urgent matter. What's going on today? At this moment, another person arrived. Chu Yu. Chu Luiwei turned his head and heaved a sigh of relief. Senior brother Rong Xiao. Rong Xiao, why are you here? Elder Wanzheng swept his gaze across the group. What day was it today? These people rarely set foot in this place, but they actually came together today. Rong Xiao's footsteps looked light and slow, but his speed was extremely fast. In a short while, he had already arrived in front of them. He first bowed to the two elders, then slowly smiled and said, Elder Bo Yin asked me to bring Chu Yu to Pengmin Mountain. This time, the two elders were both shocked. Pengmin Mountain? Again, there was a moment of silence. Chu Luiwei rubbed his glabella. How can this do? Chu Yu just woke up, and his body hasn't recovered yet. He can't go. Elder Wanzheng was protective of his disciple and would not agree no matter what. In his opinion, his precious disciple had just come out of the well and entered the fire pit. Master, this is Elder Bo Yan's order. We can't go against it. Chu Luiwei just said a sentence when he was interrupted by Elder Wanzheng. Don't worry. This time, I'll personally go and seek an explanation for you. Bullying us has become a habit. Chu Luiwei felt his head hurt even more. Elder Wanzheng. Rong Xiao did not seem to be worried and only smiled. Elder Bo Yin has his reasons for doing this. Reasons? What reasons? Elder Wanzheng was very unconvinced. His precious disciple had suffered a lot recently. How could he still go to Pengmin Mountain at this time? Rong Xiao calmly explained, That's right. After the incident in the northern part of the Great Desolate Land, the Academy has been investigating the truth behind it. I heard that in these 2 days, the other first-rate families and clans have also come out one after another and started to do this. A turmoil might be coming. Elder Wanzheng's movements paused, and his expression became complicated. She was the only one who was taken away by those people in public. Needless to say, she also obtained some kind of opportunity in that place and broke through to become a Stage 9 warrior. She will definitely be one of the targets that everyone will investigate. Entering Pengmin Mountain, on one hand, he can cultivate in peace, and on the other hand, he can avoid all these disturbances. Rong Xiao's tone was calm from beginning to end, but it carried a strange persuasiveness that made people involuntarily believe in it. Elder Wanzheng was silent for a long time. Chu Luiwei took a step forward. Master, you don't have to worry. I feel that Pengmin Mountain is actually quite good. She was speaking from the bottom of her heart. Unfortunately, in Elder Wanzheng's ears, it was his precious disciple who said it on purpose so that he wouldn't be worried. He felt more and more heartache and shook his head repeatedly. Forget it. Since that's the case, you go over for a while. When this matter is over, you will definitely come out as soon as possible. Chu Luiwei smiled. Then, Master, I will go with Senior Rong Xiao now. Elder Wanzheng waved his hand. Chu Luiwei bowed again before leaving with Rong Xiao. After watching the two figures disappear, Elder Wanzheng reluctantly retracted his gaze. Sigh. Don't be sad for now. Elder Meng Yi nudged him with his elbow and handed over something. What is this? Elder Wanzheng took it with a blank face. Elder Meng Yi grinned. Actually, it's nothing much. It's just the medicinal herbs bill that Chu Yu took from Medicine Wine Valley some time ago. Look, isn't it time to settle the bill? Elder Wanzheng could not help but laugh. I was still wondering what it was. Isn't it just... The rest of his words stopped abruptly. Elder Wan Zheng stared at the item in his hand with his mouth agape. He almost thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. This brat, did he pick the entire Medicine Wind Valley? Elder Ming, you was a little unhappy. Sigh, how can it be so exaggerated? It's clearly only 3/4. Moreover, don't you have a lot of points? That's nothing to you, is it? Elder Wan Zheng closed his eyes. He suddenly remembered what his disciple said just now. That Pingmin Mountain was quite good. It was a good place to hide from the limelight. So it was waiting for him here. This brat, Elder Wan Zheng fiercely stuffed the bill back into Elder Mengye's arms. Settle the bill. Next time, I must nurture a top celestial physician. Chu Luwe did not hear Elder Wan Zheng's bold words. She walked with Rong Xiu all the way. She was familiar with the road and soon arrived at Pingmin Mountain. Rong Xiu took a step forward. Elder Meng, Rong Xiu brought Chu Yu to greet him. No one responded. There was silence. Rong Xiu frowned slightly. Elder Meng, digression. Today was another day of running. The rest of the day would probably have to go home very late to continue updating. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1402. After a while, the barrier in front of her finally rippled and slowly opened. Come in. An old and deep voice entered her ears. Chu Luiwe was slightly stunned. This voice sounded a little more serious and cold than before, and vaguely, there seemed to be a little tiredness. I haven't been here for a while. Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes, obviously sensing that something was wrong. He turned around and looked at Chu Luiwe. Chu Luiwe's figure flashed as she followed Rong Xiu in. The two went straight and came to the tower. With previous experience, Chu Luiwe was now familiar with the place. She walked straight to the door. When she was 3 steps away, the door slowly opened. Looking inside, it was pitch black. Chu Luiwe's heart tightened. She took a deep breath and walked inside. Chu Yu. Rong Xiu suddenly called out to her. Chu Luiwe turned around. The two looked at each other. In the silence, something seemed to be flowing slowly. Rong Xiu's thin lips moved slightly, and waves gradually appeared in his eyes. But in the end, he calmed down. Everything went well. Chu Luiwe's lips curved slightly. Don't worry, I will. With that, she turned around and walked through the door without hesitation. Bang! The door closed tightly, and her figure completely disappeared from sight. Rong Xiu stood tall, with one hand behind his back, and stared at the door for a long time. After a long time, he finally turned around and left. Coming to this place again, Chu Luiwe felt a long-lost sense of familiarity. Step by step, she walked inside. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks and looked at the scene in front of her with a shocked expression. In the empty and quiet room, there were originally 7 suspended doors, but now, only 6 were left. The 6 doors had changed their positions, and the distance between them was the same. At a glance, it was impossible to tell that there used to be 7 doors here. Chu Luiwe hesitated for a moment, then asked, Elder Meng, why is there a door missing here? After a moment of silence, Elder Meng spoke in a low voice. Nothing much, just a little trouble. Little troublemaker? It didn't look like it at all. Chu Luiwe cursed in his heart. There were a total of 7 doors, and all of a sudden, one was missing. If she hadn't been here before, she wouldn't have noticed the problem. However, Chu Luiwe knew that Elder Meng didn't want to talk about it in detail, so he didn't continue to ask. Originally, during this period of time, I wasn't going to let anyone in, but Bo Yin and Rong Xiu both spoke up for you, so I had no choice but to allow it. Old Meng said in a deep voice. A strange expression flashed across Chu Luiwe's face. In the eyes of others, being imprisoned here was one of the greatest punishments. They were afraid that they would not be able to avoid it. Only when it came to her, she was not the only one who wanted to come. Even the others were helping her. This kind of feeling was really awesome. Rong Xiu and the rest must have used the same excuse they used to deal with Elder Wan Zheng to convince Elder Meng. For some reason, Chu Luiwe felt a little guilty. Thank you, Elder Meng. She cupped her fists and bowed respectfully. All right, you've been in the academy for a few months, and this is the 3rd time you've come.
Others may not know what kind of person you are, but do you think I don't know? Elder Meng sneered. Chu Luiyue coughed softly and touched her nose awkwardly. This was really, although there's a door missing, it doesn't matter. You just have to choose one and go in. He really didn't know what this kid had done to make Bo Yin and Rongxiu speak up for him, just to send him here. If it was any other time, it wouldn't matter. However, during this period of time, if it wasn't for those people, he wouldn't have let this kid in at this time. Forget it. In the end, it was just a small matter. Chu Luiyue responded and looked at the 6 doors in front of her. These doors were still emitting a faint glow and were no different from what she had seen before. Chu Luiyue hesitated for a moment and pointed to the leftmost door. I want to choose this one. Enter. Elder Meng's answer was straightforward. Chu Luiyue walked over. She pressed one hand on the door and pushed hard. The door didn't budge. Chu Luiyue took a step back in surprise and took a closer look. There was no problem, but why didn't this door open? She tried to increase her strength. She still couldn't push it open. This shouldn't be her problem, right? Chu Luiyue shouted with some hesitation. Elder Meng, this door can't be opened? Elder Meng obviously didn't expect this to happen. In the past, all these doors could be opened casually. You really can't open it? Chu Luiyue pushed again with an innocent look. It was like an iron wall. Indeed, it couldn't be opened. Then try another one, Elder Meng said. Chu Luiyue nodded and walked to the second door. After a push, her expression changed again. Elder Meng, I still can't open it. Impossible. Elder Meng raised his voice. Chu Luiyue smiled bitterly. Do you think I can lie to you here? It wasn't that she hadn't been here before. Every time, she directly pushed the door open and entered. When had it ever been like this time, where she couldn't open it after much effort? Clearly, there was something wrong with this door. Elder Meng was silent for a moment. Try another one. Chu Luiyue held her breath and walked to the third door. Staring at the door in front of her, she suddenly had a strong premonition. Perhaps she reached out her hand and tried it. Then, she shook her head and gave up. Elder Meng, no. Then, under Elder Meng's instructions, Chu Luiyue tried all 6 doors. None of them worked. All the doors seemed to be locked from the inside. They couldn't be opened at all. Chu Luiyue rubbed between her eyebrows. She felt a headache coming on. Elder Meng couldn't help but ask, Kid, is there something wrong with you? Chu Luiyue was speechless. Elder Meng, I haven't been here for a while. This shouldn't be my fault, right? Chu Luiyue felt that this was a scam. When she came, there was one door missing. Obviously, something had happened here before. How could you be blamed for this? Elder Meng choked for a moment, then snorted. Then you can stay in this hall. This kid has a temper. It was already troublesome enough because of that thing. And now I have to take care of this kid. What a thankless task. Chu Luiyue said. Oh, stay in the hall then. These doors can't be open anyway. Isn't it the same wherever I am? After saying that, Chu Luiyue sat on the ground. The jade floor was cold and cool. A wave of coldness swept over. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but shiver. She sat cross-legged with her shoulders hanging naturally. Her palms were on her knees with her palms facing up. The surrounding heaven and earth force slowly surged toward her body. Chu Luiyue gradually calmed down. Although the concentration of heaven and earth force here wasn't as strong as the one behind the door, it wasn't bad suddenly. A thought flashed through her mind like a spark from a flint. Wait, the door that disappeared. Could it be, was it the door that she went through before? Digression. I only got home after 8 o'clock tonight. I'm so sorry. I'll update at 12 o'clock tomorrow. I'm going to eat. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1403. Just as this thought popped up in her head, Chu Luiyue suddenly felt a faint light flash across her eyes. She closed her eyes and looked again, but there was nothing there. The void in front of her was still empty. Her fingertips moved slightly, and she was surprised to find that the space around her seemed to have become more viscous. This change was very subtle. If one did not look carefully, they would not notice it. Confusion surfaced in Chu Luiyue's heart. This place, why is it getting weirder? She wanted to ask Elder Meng, but on second thought, everything here should be under Elder Meng's control.
Since he did not have any reaction, it should be fine. She closed her eyes and entered the state of cultivation again. Chu Liu stayed in Mount Pangmin just like that. Outside, however, a storm was already brewing. Liang Shaokong, the third young master of the Liang family, died in the primeval desolate north for no reason. They did not even know who the murderer was. Liang Xiao went back to the Liang family without stopping. When she reached home, the Liang family had already received the news. The atmosphere in the Liang family, from inside to outside, was solemn. In the study, the Liang family's master, Liang Ye, was frowning. The dark circles under his eyes, as well as his bloodshot eyes, made this extraordinary figure seem much older and more haggard. Although he had several sons, he had always doted on Liang Shaokong the most. Now that he had lost his beloved son, how could he not be sad? When Liang Xiao came in, she found that the air here seemed to have frozen. "Father!" She opened her mouth, and tears were falling from her eyes. Liang Ye immediately went forward. Xiao, you're finally back." He stared at Liang Xiao. "You went to the primeval desolate north with the academy. Do you know what happened to your brother?" Liang Xiao wiped her tears and asked while holding back her sobs. "Father, didn't you say that the family has something to do, so you won't get involved in the primeval desolate north? Why would third brother appear there?" Liang Ye's expression froze, and he looked away. He sneaked over behind my back. "Father, do you believe what you said? Third brother didn't go alone. He brought along a few elders from the clan. Without your permission, how could third brother possibly invite them?" Liang Xiao originally didn't know about it, but this matter had already spread throughout the entire Liang family. No matter how slow she was, she should have known. Liang Ye loosened his grip on her arm and half turned around. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. After a long while, he said, "I'm sorry. You also know that your third brother is not the most outstanding in all aspects. It will be difficult for him to convince everyone to inherit the family business. If he can make a contribution in the northern region of the great desolate land, then father—" "You're confused." Liang Xiao couldn't help but interrupt him. She felt as if there was a fire burning in her chest. "Don't you know how capable third brother is? The great desolate north is so dangerous, and you actually let him go just like that?" And behind her back, no, this matter should have been done behind the backs of the entire Liang family, all for the sake of letting Liang Shaokong amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Take this opportunity to rise to the top. Liang Ye could not help but raise his voice. "I've already sent several elders to follow him closely. Who knows?" His voice came to an abrupt stop, and the veins on his forehead bulged as he slammed his fist on the table beside him. Bang! A corner of the high-quality table carved from black iron wood was smashed into pieces. Liang Xiao's body trembled, and a wave of bitterness surged in her heart. That's right. Father was also doing this for third brother's sake. He should be feeling worse than anyone else, right? She took a deep breath and said word by word, "Father, although I still don't know who the culprit is, I know where to start investigating." Liang Ye suddenly turned around. Liang Xiao clenched her fists, and a deep hatred appeared in her eyes. "Jiang Jiwan, if you want to find the truth, you just have to find her." "Jiang Jiwan? The Jiang family of the immortal water tomb? What does this have to do with her?" Liang Ye was confused. He looked at Liang Xiao's expression and could not help but ask, "Also, weren't you very close to her in the past?" "How close?" "Huh, father, you don't know what that bitch did." Following that, Liang Xiao told Liang Ye everything that she knew in detail. Liang Ye's expression changed rapidly. In the end, there was only a layer of frost left. The Academy has always maintained a neutral stance. It's basically impossible to get any information from them. But Jiang Jiwan is different. Moreover, third brother once asked her for help, but she still ignored him. How despicable. Liang Xiao wanted nothing more than to tear Jiang Jiwan to shreds right now. "I understand." Liang Ye suppressed the anger in his heart and laughed coldly. "Just someone from the immortal water mausoleum, and yet they have such guts. I like to see how they plan to give the Liang family an explanation this time. As he spoke, he lifted his foot and walked out. Father, where are you going? Liang Xiao was shocked and hurried to follow. Liang Ye did not look back. I'm going to the Immortal Water Mausoleum personally to find out the truth and avenge Shao Kahn. Liang Xiao pursed her lips. I'll go with you. The Liang family people came to the Immortal Water Mausoleum aggressively, but they came up empty. Jiang Jiwan did not return to the Immortal Water Mausoleum at all. She went straight to the Yuntian Tower. Bitch, how cunning. Liang Xiao was furious. If Jiang Jiwan escaped to the Yuntian Tower, then it would not be so easy to force her out again. After all, the Yuntian Tower was also a first-class family, and its status was higher than theirs. They dared to come to the Immortal Water Mausoleum to cause trouble, but they might not dare to go to the Yuntian Tower's door. But Liang Ye had a different attitude. The Yuntian Tower might not protect her. Xiao, didn't you say that Jiang Jiwan asked Rongxiu for help, but Rongxiu ignored her? Liang Xiao smiled mockingly. That's right. She still thinks that she's the future princess of the Yuntian Tower and that Rongxiu will treat her differently from others. In fact, I think Rongxiu won't even look at her. That day, Rongxiu gave Jiang Jiwan a hard slap in front of everyone. That's right. Liang Ye sighed in relief. Rongxiu is in charge of the Yuntian Tower now. His attitude toward Jiang Jiwan will determine the attitude of the Yuntian Tower toward her. He did not believe that the Yuntian Tower would want to get involved with such a big problem. Liang Xiao's eyes lit up. Father is right. Jiang Zuan had already been expelled from the Ling Xiao Academy, and her reputation in the Divine Ruins world had reached rock bottom. Even if the Immortal Water Mausoleum is the leader of the 28 divisions of the Yuntian Tower, they might not be willing to protect her. Liang Ye nodded. Then, let's go to the Yuntian Tower. If Jiang Jiwan is rejected, we can make our move. Yuntian Tower. Jiang Hetian and Jiang Jiwan had been waiting outside the barrier for 3 days and 3 nights. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1404. After what had happened, Jiang Jiwan had thought that her mentality had been tempered and that she would be able to deal with any problem she faced. However, after waiting here for 3 days, she was on the verge of despair again. She had never thought that the Yuntian Tower, where she had come and gone freely since she was a child, would one day reject her. And so mercilessly, Jiang Hetian's expression darkened. However, he was a man who had seen his fair share of storms and was able to keep his composure better than Jiang Jiwan. He glanced at the sky, then stepped forward again and asked the guard in charge, Is Elder Yu Jingzuan not here yet? The guard cupped his hands in salute, but his expression was cold and indifferent. Elder Yu Jingzuan is very busy. We don't know when he will arrive. How could Jiang Hetian not see that the guard was being perfunctory? If it was in the past, they would not have dared to treat him like this. However, now that the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower had been decided and Jiang Jiwan had failed, they no longer had to treat her like this. Not to mention, the news of Jiang Jiwan's expulsion from Lingxiao College had already spread like wildfire. Given the sensitivity of the Yuntian Tower, they would have known about it long ago. If not for the fact that the Tomb of Immortal Water had a place among the 28 tribes, they would not even have had the chance to wait here. They would have been directly kicked out. Jiang Hetian glanced inside again. Of course, he could not see anything clearly from here. He paused and could not help but ask, Did you really inform your superiors of our arrival? The guard frowned. Patriarch Jiang, do you not trust us? Wasn't he openly questioning them? Jiang Hetian's heart skipped a beat. It's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Maybe Elder Yu Jingzuan is still busy. We'll just wait a little longer. After saying that, he took 2 steps back and stood to the side. When Jiang Ziyuan saw this, she almost gnashed her teeth to pieces. If not for her, Father would not have to suffer such humiliation. What's the fuss? Just then, a cold and serious voice sounded. Jiang Hetian and Jiang Zhuan were overjoyed and looked up. An old man walked out of the barrier. It was Honorable Elder Yu Jing, whom they had been waiting for 3 days. Honorable Elder Yu Jing. Jiang Hetian hurriedly stepped forward, and just as he was about to speak, he saw Elder Yu Jing raising his palm. There's no need to say more. This old man already knows what happened. His tone was much colder than before. However, the fact that he was able to come out at this time was already a pleasant surprise for Jiang Hetian and his daughter. So how could they care less? Elder Yu Jingzuan glared at Jiang Jiwan. You want to enter the Yuntian Tower for self-reflection and cultivation? Jiang Jiwan felt a chill run down her spine and responded in a low voice. Ziyuan has been doing something wrong recently and has caused a lot of trouble for everyone. Therefore, please stay here and cultivate while you wait for the patriarch to come out of seclusion. Clan leader has already been in seclusion for a few years. I don't know when he will come out. Once you leave, I don't know when you'll be able to come out. Are you sure? Honorable Elder Yu Jing narrowed his eyes. Jiang Zhuwan's hands, which were crossed on her lower abdomen, were tightly intertwined. After a moment, she said, Clan leader has always treated Ziyuan with love and care. This is what Ziyuan should do. As long as clan leader doesn't come out of seclusion, Ziyuan will not step out of Wanzhong Mountain. Wanzhong Mountain was the place where clan leader was in seclusion. Elder Yu Jing stared at Jiang Zhuan from head to toe for a long time. Since that's the case, from today onwards, you will go, oh, why is this place so lively? Before Honorable Elder Yu Jing could finish his words, a voice with a smile came from afar. However, when they heard this voice, their expressions changed. In the blink of an eye, that person's figure had already approached quickly. Greetings to 36 Honorable Elder Ming. The guard bowed respectfully. 36 Honorable Elder Ming chuckled and waved his hand. His eyes quickly swept across the few of them, and he asked in surprise, Oh, Patriarch Jiang, when did you guys come? Why didn't you say anything in advance? Look, you came from afar, but we didn't make any preparations in advance. What if we neglected you? Jiang Hetian's face was faintly green. Why is this guy here? And, judging from his words, he's clearly here to cause trouble. He deliberately only revealed the news to Elder Yu Jing because he wanted to enter the Yuntian Tower before the news spread. As long as what was done, the others couldn't jump out to object. However, now that 36 Honorable Elder Ming was here, it would be difficult for Jiang Zhuan to enter the Yuntian Tower. He forced a smile and said, 36 Honorable Elder Ming is busy and doesn't dare to disturb you. We have already asked Honorable Elder Yu Jing. I heard you guys talking about clan leader just now. What's going on? 36 Honorable Elder Ming chuckled and interrupted him. He calmly and decisively brushed this matter aside and looked at Jiang Zhuan. It seems it has something to do with you. Asking the obvious. Jiang Jiwan was secretly angry. According to 36 Honorable Elder Ming's identity and strength, he could immediately know what he wanted to know. He spoke so openly just to deliberately make things difficult for her and embarrass her. However, Jiang Zhuan didn't dare to say anything and could only repeat what she said earlier. Of course, she said it in a sad, pitiful, and sincere way. However, this was of no use to 36 revered Elder Ming. So, you'll be staying in the Yuntian Tower from now on? 36 Honorable Elder Ming asked directly after hearing that. Jiang Jiwan choked. Why does this sound so strange? If clan leader can come out of seclusion soon, then Ziyuan can naturally. Clan leader has been in seclusion for a few years. If there's another 10 years, 20 years, TSK, if I remember correctly, Ziyuan, you're already at the age of marriage this year, right? You're wasting your youth here. Wouldn't that be a waste? 36 Honorable Elder Ming sighed. Jiang Jiwan's expression instantly became very interesting. Marriage? Was he deliberately mocking her for not being chosen as the princess consort? All these years, everyone thought that she would be the mistress of the Yuntian Tower, but in the end, there was nothing. Jiang Jiwan lowered her eyes, afraid that the emotions in her eyes would surge out and be seen by them. She gritted her teeth and said, "This kind of thing can't be forced in the end. It still depends on fate. Moreover, my personal matters are insignificant. Compared to clan leader coming out of seclusion, it's really not worth mentioning. Whether it's 10 years, 20 years, or even longer, I can wait." She spoke very firmly, because this was her only way out at the moment. 36 Honorable Elder Ming raised his eyebrows, and the smile on his face faded. "Even if you're willing to do this, you have to see if the others agree. After all, this Yuan tower doesn't belong to your Jiang family, right?" Jiang Zhuan's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly defended herself. 36 Honorable Elder Ming, I didn't. Moreover, clan leader status is precious and special. If you go, what kind of name will you have? 36 Honorable Elder Ming stroked his beard. Now that the princess consort is in charge of the Yuan tower, she will handle everything. You don't have to worry about this. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1405. Dead Silence. The moment Chu Luiyue finished speaking, the surrounding air seemed to have frozen. Elder Bo Yan's eyelids twitched violently, and he asked almost instinctively, Used. What does that mean?" Chu Luiyue suddenly smiled, and her eyes curved into crescents. "I use it to reconstruct the three-eyed eagle's physical body." She was still hesitant about whether she should confess this matter. After thinking for a while, she finally chose to tell the truth. On one hand, the reaction of the scale had already pointed the finger at her, and the Great Phoenix Dragon Clan would definitely investigate this matter to the end. On the other hand, she had formed a contract with Zichun, and she would have to summon him whenever she traveled in the Divine Ruins world. The two Great Phoenix Dragon Wing bones were in its body, so how could they not find it? This matter could not be concealed at all, and it would be exposed sooner or later. Instead of running away pathetically, it was better to face it directly. So what if she used it? When Mao Yao heard Chu Luiyue's words, his vision turned black, and he almost fainted. "This Shangguan, you actually used their noble corpses to reconstruct the three-eyed eagle's physical body. Disgrace. This was the greatest disgrace." Before coming here, he had imagined countless scenarios. However, he had never thought of this one. Although the three-eyed eagle was also a divine beast, its level was obviously much lower than theirs. "How dare Shangguan you do this?" Mao Yao's chest seemed to be surging wildly, and he could not even complete a sentence. He only raised his finger and pointed at Chu Luiyue, his body trembling slightly. The onlookers were also shocked. What kind of trick was this? Using the Great Phoenix Dragon's corpse to reconstruct the three-eyed eagle's physical body? Although the effect was not bad, that was a Great Phoenix Dragon. Elder Bo Yan's face was blank. At this moment, the first thought that flashed through his mind was, no wonder the three-eyed eagle's combat power was so strong. It did not lose to the crimson gold heavenly phoenix at all. This is a serious matter. Don't let your emotions affect your decisions, and speak nonsense." Elder Wanzheng suddenly let out a deep shout. Chu Luiyue looked in the direction of the voice. Elder Wanzheng's face was cold, but his eyes were filled with anxiety and nervousness. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. She knew that Elder Wanzheng didn't want her to bear the brunt of the danger, so he said that on purpose. But she was the one who did it, so she should bear all the responsibility. She raised her chin slightly. "This was done by me alone. It has nothing to do with Taizu or the Academy. If you want to find out who's responsible, just come at me." Shangguan Jing went forward and grabbed her arm, looking anxious. Did she know how much trouble this would bring her? The great Void Phoenix Dragon race had chased after him for thousands of years just for that corpse. Now that she had taken it for herself, she had touched their reverse scale. Even he might not be able to protect her. Chu Luiyue's lips curved slightly, and then she pried Taizu's hand away bit by bit. "Taizu, one person is responsible for one's actions. This has nothing to do with you. But I knew that this day would come when I dare to do this." After Chu Luiyue finished speaking, she suddenly tapped her toes. Her figure quickly flew into the sky. Finally,
She stopped when she was almost at the same level as Mao Yao and the others. You. Elder Wanzheng wanted to go over without thinking, but Elder Huafeng stopped him. Wait, let's see what that girl plans to do. Elder Wanzheng was extremely anxious. What time is it now? If we're late, I'm afraid she would lose her life. Elder Huafeng gritted his teeth. Didn't you see that Rongxiu hasn't moved yet? Perhaps they have other ways. Elder Wanzheng turned his head and saw that Rongxiu was still standing on the spot. He looked up slightly and was staring at the two sides that were in a confrontation. His face was expressionless, making it hard to guess. Elder Wanzheng and the others hesitated. They all knew how much Rongxiu cared about Shang Wanyu. But until now, he was still biding his time. Did he really have other ways? In fact, Rongxiu had already ignored all the chaotic sound around him. He put one hand behind his back and cracked his knuckles. He seemed to be counting the time, but also seemed to be waiting for something. His deep phoenix eyes seemed to be calm, but in reality, they were surging with undercurrents. Boom! Another bolt of heavenly lightning struck down. The top of Thousand Wine Mountain was already in a mess. Previously, Elder Bo Yin and the others had spent a lot of effort to recover from the incident, and it wasn't easy. Now that the Tianlei had fallen, everything was gone. Trees fell and rocks collapsed. The charred marks were a ghastly sight. Only the spring in the middle seemed to be sealed by an invisible barrier. The Tianlei fell around it, but it did not fall into it. Frost had condensed and covered half of it. Something seemed to be stirring in its depths, ready to erupt at any time. You're quite bold at such a young age. Mao Yao stared at Chu Luiwei and laughed out of anger. Looks like you've already thought about how you're going to die. Chu Luiwei also laughed. Not really. I've died once, so I cherish my life a lot. I'm here to discuss with you how we should resolve this matter. Mao Yao thought he had heard wrongly. You used the corpse of my great Phoenix Dragon clan, and you still want to live? Dream on. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly raised his hand. Chi! Suddenly, a dazzling light burst out from the scales. Then, it turned into a huge dragon and went straight for Chu Luiwei. Shang Wanjing was shocked. Oh no, that's Mao Yao's true body. Digression. 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1406. 36 respected Elder Ming glanced at her indifferently. His gaze was extremely indifferent, but it suddenly made Jiang Ji-won feel a little ashamed. That was an expression that only a powerful person who had been in a high position for a long time would reveal when facing a weak and lowly ant. Jiang Ji-won suddenly felt uncomfortable in her heart. Although she wasn't born in a real first-rate family or clan, she had always thought of herself as a favored child all these years by relying on the doting of the clan leader, coupled with her moving appearance and outstanding talent. Every time she came to Yuntian Tower, she was proud and high above. There had never been a moment when she understood so clearly that everything about her was inferior to others. She wasn't any nobler than the others. This old man has already said that such a small matter shouldn't alarm the princess consort. It's the same for this old man to do it on her behalf. 36 respected Elder Ming said slowly. But Jiang Jiwon still wanted to defend herself, but she met 36 respected Elder Ming's gaze. She suddenly stopped talking, and the rest of her words were stuck in her throat, unable to be said. Considering each other's faces, this old man didn't say some things directly earlier. But if you insist on being stubborn, this old man won't be polite with you. It was probably because Jiang Jiwon's words that offended 36 respected Elder Ming. His expression became much calmer, and he said slowly, Jiang Jiwon, the matter of you being expelled from Lingxiao College has already caused an uproar in the city. Why did you come to Yuntian Tower at this juncture? Do you really think that we don't know? Are you treating everyone else as fools? Lingxiao College was the #1 college in the Divine Ruins world. Although it was extremely difficult to get into, it was very rare that they would expel a student so decisively. All these years, those who were expelled from the college had all committed unforgivable mistakes, which was why they were forcefully expelled from the college. Lingxiao College didn't announce the reason for Jiang Jiwon's expulsion to the public. But just thinking about it, one would know that it wasn't a small matter. After all, she used to be highly regarded in Lingxiao College. One could only imagine what Jiang Jiwon had done to make Lingxiao College make the next decision. How dare she come to the Yuntian Tower to seek protection? Jiang Jiwon's body swayed, and the last trace of blood on her lips completely faded. 36 Respected Elder Ming. Elder Yu Jing frowned. It's normal for young people to make small mistakes occasionally. Besides, she's small mistake? 36 Revered Elder Ming laughed, not concealing his mockery. This old man would like to ask, what kind of small mistake is it? What could make Elder Danxing want to sever their master-disciple relationship? Over the past few years, that old man had been taking special care of Jiang Jiwon. Now that he was willing to do so, it was really hard not to let one's imagination roam. Jiang Jiwon bit her lips. Her eyes were red and tears kept falling. Unfortunately, she couldn't say a single word of rebuttal. Of course, she couldn't reveal the truth to the public. If that was the case, her life would be completely over. This, Elder Yu Jing, was speechless. But she is ultimately a member of the Jiang family, and the clan leader has always treated her very well. If we stand by and do nothing when she encounters such a situation, how are we going to explain it to the elders in the future? After thinking about it, he could only bring up the clan leader. 36 Revered Elder Ming chuckled. Of course, let them explain it themselves. In this day and age, did people who did wrong still have reason? Besides, isn't the Jiang family just one of the subordinate clans of the Yuntian Tower? Since when can they act like a tyrant here? Yu Jing, aren't you helping them too much today? As he spoke, 36 Revered Elder Ming narrowed his eyes and sized him up carefully. Elder Yu Jing felt numb all over from his gaze and quickly changed the topic. Aren't I also doing this for the Yuntian Tower? After all, the Jiang family is the leader of the 28 clans. Now that the clan leader is in seclusion and the saint is not around, if something really happens, whoever makes a mistake will bear the consequences. 36 Revered Elder Ming's attitude was very unyielding. After a short silence, both sides were in a stalemate. Jiang Hetian became anxious. 36 Revered Elder Ming's position was more important than Revered Elder Yu Jing's. If he insisted on not letting them enter the Yuntian Tower, then, even if a few more revered elders came, there wouldn't be any hope. 36 Revered Elder Ming turned to leave. He didn't have much time to waste on these people and such matters. Seal the area with a barrier. Without my orders, no outsiders are allowed to enter. Yes, the guard quickly responded. 36 Revered Elder Ming, please wait. Jiang Jiwon suddenly took a step forward. As she spoke, she took out something from her neck and gritted her teeth. I have the clan leader's token. The air froze for a moment. 36 Revered Elder Ming slowly turned around and looked at Jiang Jiwon in disbelief. What did you say? Jiang Jiwon didn't want to expose this matter at first. After all, it involved too many people. But she really had no other choice. She gripped the item tightly in her hand and said word by word, I want to go to Wanzhou Mountain. Lingxiao College. Peng Min Mountain. Inside the tower was quiet. Time passed slowly. Even the subtle sound of the wind was hidden. Everything around seemed to have frozen, but it also seemed to be undergoing some subtle changes. At a certain moment, Chu Luiyue opened her eyes again. Her black, jade-like eyes flashed with a bright light. It was like a ray of afterglow that was thrown into a pool of autumn water, causing faint ripples. Fine light and shadow intertwined, moving one's heartstrings. She blinked her eyes in a daze. Just now, it was as if a ray of light had flashed past her eyes. This statement wasn't accurate because just now, her eyes were closed. However, she had indeed seen that faint ray of light. It was as if something had flashed into her mind. But when she opened her eyes, everything disappeared again. Chu Luiyue frowned. She had never felt this way before. Only this time, after entering this place, did it inexplicably become like this. And, vaguely, she felt that Elder Ming didn't seem to know about this matter. She tried her best to keep her expression calm as her gaze slowly swept across the 6 doors. Everything was normal. It was as if nothing had happened. Chu Luiwei closed her eyes quietly. Not long after, that ray of light appeared again. This time, Chu Luiwei was finally sure that that thing had indeed quietly entered her mind. That ray of light was like a flying butterfly, wandering back and forth in front of her eyes as if it was outlining something. Vaguely, Chu Luiwei finally saw the outline of that thing. Immediately, her heart skipped a beat, because that ray of light had actually outlined a door in her mind. With just a glance, Chu Luiwei was sure that this was the door that she had entered before. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1407. Didn't this door disappear? Why did it suddenly appear here? Chu Luiwei was stunned for a long time before she finally accepted this fact. She adjusted her breathing and maintained the appearance of everything as usual. Gradually, the outline and lines of the door became clearer. Finally, it appeared in front of Chu Luiwei's eyes. If only this door could be opened. Just as this thought flashed through her mind, Chu Luiwei realized that the door had really opened. At this moment, she realized that her consciousness seemed to be controlled by some kind of power and condensed into a small figure. That small figure was exactly the same as her and could move according to her consciousness. Just as she was about to enter, the small figure entered through the door. Light and shadow changed in front of her eyes. Something seemed to be flying past him at high speed. It brought a gust of cold wind. After a long while, the surroundings gradually quieted down. Chu Luiwei opened her eyes. Immediately, she held her breath. She had actually entered the door. It was still the same square space, and all kinds of free and unrestrained lines were drawn. Even the density of the heaven and earth origin force was exactly the same as before. The invisible surging power began to gather rapidly in Chu Luiwei's body. At the top of the tower, in the quiet and empty room, a blue-robed old man sat cross-legged. His hair was white, and his face was wrinkled with traces of time erosion. His aura was ethereal, and he had the demeanor of an immortal. In the void in front of him, a horsetail whisk floated quietly. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Suddenly, his brows moved slightly. A low and hoarse voice came from his throat. The next moment, he opened his eyes. It was a pair of gray eyes that were extremely pure and clean. They were as pure as a newborn baby, and as vast as the vicissitudes of life that had seen thousands of sails, deep and tolerant. If one were to meet such a pair of eyes, it would be as if all the secrets would be exposed. At this moment, he was looking at a door not far in front of him. That door and his horsetail whisk looked at each other from afar, facing each other. A look of contemplation flashed through Elder Ming's eyes. This door doesn't seem right, but upon closer inspection, it seemed to be quite normal, and he couldn't tell what was wrong. Am I thinking too much? Elder Ming calmed his heart. During this period of time, he had been tormented by this thing to the point of choking. It was a little restless before, and he spent a lot of effort to move it from the first floor to the top floor. He put it in front of him and looked at it personally. I can't let anything happen again. Elder Ming stared at the door for a while to make sure there was nothing wrong with it before he closed his eyes again. But his heart was still drumming more or less. This lass, she really doesn't want to just like that? If I catch her later. He muttered a few words to himself before he returned to his meditative state. Only that dort teat. To know what state she was in her current state to enter because plus if it's really such a big movement, there's no reason for Elder Ming to not come out. Unable to figure it out, Chu Luiwei decided not to think about it. Time was precious, and she had to seize every opportunity to cultivate as soon as possible. After all, it wasn't easy for her to come here. After calming her mind, Chu Luiwei began to focus on cultivation. Now that she was at the early stage of the 9th stage, Her cultivation efficiency was naturally much higher than before. Plus, ever since she came back from the northern wilderness, she noticed that her aura seemed to be undergoing obvious changes every day. It was as if she had devoured too much power in the tomb, and now that she was gradually releasing it and integrating it into every inch of her body, her strength naturally increased. Plus, after she broke through to the 9th stage, the changes were far more than that. Chu Liyue thought for a while and looked at her dantian again. On the water droplet, 9 dazzling lines shone brightly. Although the last line was slightly inferior, it was still very eye-catching. The black pyramid was covered with countless cracks, like a spider web. Especially in the middle, there was a crack that went all the way from the top of the pyramid to the bottom, almost completely penetrating it. Only the last part was still connected to each other. At a glance, it was extremely fragile, as if it could be completely shattered with a casual touch. When Chu Liyue woke up, it was already like this. A faint glow seeped out from those cracks, and there was a faint, illusory glow. Even Chu Liyue herself didn't know when the last part of the seal would be broken. She could even feel a strong sense of familiarity. That was indeed her soul. There was no doubt about it. Of course, there were also fragments of memories that she had forgotten. Chu Liyue suppressed the throbbing in her heart and crazily absorbed the surrounding energy. It was like a surging river, surging through a dry riverbed. The dry land was rejuvenated by spring, and everything became full of vitality. Chu Liyue thought, the day when my soul returns, perhaps. It won't be too far away. Jiuheng Mountain. Rongxiu returned from Pengmin Mountain. Just as he arrived at the door, his expression suddenly changed, and his eyes paused on the locked door. A moment later, he pushed the door open and entered. Duge Mabao was waiting in the room. Hearing the sound, he turned around. His exquisite and luxurious purple robe was stained with blood. Rongxiu frowned. You did it. Digression. I'll come back after dinner. It's the last day. Don't forget to vote. This month's comment stars, monthly vote stars, and recommendation stars, if you want to verify it. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1408. I've run into a little trouble. Duge Mabao said faintly. He said it casually, but Rongxiu understood that it was not a small matter for him to be like this. I've blocked all news and use of means. There shouldn't be any problems in the short term. Duge Mabao continued. Hearing him say this, Rongxiu swallowed the rest of his words. Where's Yue? Duge Mabao paused. She seems to have broken through to the 9th stage. It shouldn't be long before she breaks through to the God Realm, right? Rongxiu nodded. She's at Mount Pengmin. Duge Mabao narrowed his eyes and didn't speak for a while. There seemed to be a glimmer of light in his demonic purple eyes. She went there on her own? Yes, I guessed. Duge Mabao didn't look surprised, as if he had already expected it. How much did she remember? Speaking of this, he raised his gaze and looked at Rongxiu. Rongxiu's thin scarlet lips curled up slightly. He walked over with a faint smile. I'm really not sure. Some time ago, she was in a coma. When she woke up, she said she wanted to go to Mount Pengmin. Other than that, there didn't seem to be anything unusual. As for what she remembered and how much she remembered, she refused to tell me, so I can't guess. Of course, he knew that Chu Liyue remembered a lot of things. Otherwise, she wouldn't have directly asked to go to Mount Pengmin and be so sure that he was willing to help. But she didn't seem to want to lay her cards on the table. He simply didn't ask. Duge Mabao was silent for a moment. Let her be. During this period of time, there will be a lot of trouble coming to the door. She can also avoid it. I think so too. Rongxiu nodded. With the support of the Academy, I think those people won't be able to cause much trouble. But are you sure the situation on your side is okay? Otherwise, Duge Mabao frowned. With such a serious expression on her chubby, white, and tender little face, it was always easy for people to fall out of character. Fortunately, other than himself, only Rongxiu was here. No need. Duge Mabao picked up his teacup Lingxiao College suffered a lot in this trip to the northern region of the Untainted Land, and there'll be a lot of trouble later. Keep an eye on them. Don't worry about that. Rongxiu smiled. No matter what, Yintian Tower and I will always be with Lingxiao College. Upon hearing this, Duga Mabao was relieved. Although he had always been very picky about Rongxiu, relatively speaking, among these people, Rongxiu was considered more reliable. The room fell into a brief silence. I have to make a trip back to the Red Moon Desert. Duga Mabao said. There seems to be a problem on Diwu's side. Thinking about it, he had already been out for quite some time. It was time to go back and take a look. He could almost imagine how Lan Xiao had scolded him behind his back. At first, he was a little worried, but now that Chu Luiyue had gone to Mount Pengmin, he might not be out for a while. He could take this opportunity to go back. Please be careful. Rongxiu nodded and asked again. When are you leaving? Today. Duga Mabao had always been a person who paid attention to efficiency. Rongxiu paused. Then Elder Bo Yin. He seems to have noticed something. Duga Mabao took a sip of tea and then said casually, just let it be. Don't worry about it. Anyway, they would not be able to find out anything in a short time. Seeing Duga Mabao say this, Rongxiu did not ask anymore. Then please be careful. Duga Mabao put down the teacup and walked forward. When he walked to the middle of the room, he stopped. Bang! A small flame suddenly ignited on his robes. Wherever the flame passed, the mottled bloodstains disappeared, and his robe was brand new. Under the light of the flame, it emitted an extremely faint light like scales. In a short while, he had already returned to his normal appearance. Then he waved his hand. The void shook. A crack in space appeared out of nowhere. Duga Mabao suddenly turned around and looked at Rongxiu. During this period, I'll leave her to you. You must take good care of her. Rongxiu smiled. Rongxiu has a duty. I will do my best. Of course, he would dote on his princess consort. Duga Mabao choked, snorted, and stepped in. His small figure instantly disappeared from the room. The crack in space quickly recovered, and even the energy fluctuations in the room quickly calmed down. Everything was quiet and peaceful as if nothing had happened. Rongxiu stood quietly on the spot for a while. Just as he was about to turn around and go back, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. He raised his eyebrows slightly and looked out the window. An extremely faint and cold smile seemed to flash across his face. Interesting. It seemed that those people had already gone to the Yuntian Tower and planned to make them take the blame together. Shue Shue! Rongxiu suddenly shouted. Shue Shue, who had automatically disappeared for a long time, finally appeared. A snow-white head poked out from behind the screen. Go back to the Yuntian Tower first. Shue Shue's eyes, which were originally filled with hope, suddenly dimmed. Go back. What's so good about going back? My dear Yuer is here. Although I can't see her, at least we're in the same place. If I go back, who knows when I'll see her again? Rongxiu glanced at it with a cold gaze. Patriarch is finally coming out of seclusion. I have to go and express my gratitude. Shue Shue's eyes flashed with surprise. Coming out of seclusion? Didn't he? Meeting Rongxiu's gaze, Shue Shue suppressed the doubts in its heart, sneezed, and left obediently. When its figure disappeared, Rongxiu's lips curled up slightly. He actually came out of seclusion. That's really even more exciting. Digression. It's the last day. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1409. The Liang family rushed to the Yuntian Tower as fast as they could and bumped into Jiang Hetien, who was about to leave. When enemies met, their eyes blazed with hatred. Because of Liang Shaokong's death, Liang Yiye and Liang Xiaoxiao now viewed everyone in the Tomb of Immortal Water as their enemy. Among them was the head of the Jiang family, Jiang Hetien. Seeing their aggressive approach, Jiang Hetien already understood 70% to 80% of what was going on. Before he came, he had already asked Jiang Jiwan to tell him everything that had happened in the northern region of the wilderness. Jiang Juan also knew that only her father could be relied on at this time, so she told him everything. Liang Shaokang's matter was also included. Head of the Liang family. Jiang Hetian cupped his hands politely. However, the other party didn't buy it. He scanned the surroundings and found that Jiang Hetian was the only one here. Jiang Juan was nowhere to be seen. His heart sank. Where's Jiang Juan? You're asking about my daughter? Oh, she just entered the Yuntian Tower with 36 revered elders Ming and Yu Jing to accompany the head of the family at Wanzhou Mountain. Jiang Hetian played it down. However, his words revealed an important piece of information. Jiang Juan was now under the protection of the Yuntian Tower. Liang Ye and his daughter's expressions changed slightly. They had hurried over because they were afraid of such a situation. They didn't expect. This is really strange. Jiang Juan has already been expelled from Lingxiao College. Logically speaking, the Yuntian Tower wouldn't accept her at this time, right? Why would they let her in? Liang Xiaoxiao didn't have that much patience and directly said coldly. Jiang Hetian was displeased, but he could only endure the other party's status and laugh. Although Ziyuan is my daughter, she grew up in the Yuntian Tower and has a close relationship with the head of the family. The revered elders of the Yuntian Tower have always treated her as their closest junior. What's so strange about this? Liang Xiaoxiao sneered. Was Jiang Jiwan worthy? The patriarch of the Yuntian Tower was still in closed-door training. It was impossible for him to speak up for Jiang Jiwan. Moreover, things were different now. Right now, Yin Tianke had a real princess consort overseeing it. There was no room for Jiang Jiwan to jump around. I really don't know what kind of tricks the *TCH used. Patriarch Liang, if you want to see Ziyuan, it's not impossible. You could just ask the guard to report it. However, Ziyuan came here this time to accompany the patriarch out of seclusion. Whether she could come out or not was another matter. Now that the matter had been settled, Jiang Hetian's courage was greatly relieved. You, Liang Xiaoxiao was furious and was about to step forward. Xiaoxiao. Liang Ye was rather calm as he called out to her in a deep voice. Only then did Liang Xiaoxiao manage to suppress the anger in her heart. Since she has already entered the Yuntian Tower, we shall not disturb her any further. Liang Ye was very decisive. The Yuntian Tower should know the consequences of doing this, but they still did it. There must be something fishy going on. Dad, Liang Xiaoxiao was unwilling. Liang Ye looked at her meaningfully and turned to leave. Liang Xiaoxiao stomped her feet and quickly followed. Jiang Hetian looked at their backs as they returned in defeat. His hanging heart was finally relieved. No matter what, they had avoided a lot of trouble this time. With the Yuntian Tower, their immortal water mausoleum would not have any problems. Dad, why did you stop me just now? I want to ask those people in the Yuntian Tower if there's something wrong with their brains. How could such a *TCH deserve their protection? On the way back, Liang Xiaoxiao was still angry. In comparison, Liang Ye was much calmer. You even know this. Do you think those people in the Yuntian Tower don't know? Liang Xiaoxiao was stunned. You mean the father and daughter of the Jiang family obviously have other cards up their sleeves to make the Yuntian Tower compromise for them? I just don't know. What is it? Liang Ye murmured, puzzled. Xiaoxiao, you used to have a good relationship with her. Do you know anything? Liang Xiaoxiao sneered. She's a person who only thinks for herself and is very careful. If she really had such a powerful card up her sleeve, do you think she would let me know? Liang Ye frowned. If that's the case, it'll be difficult to find trouble with her. Who knows when the leader of the Yuntian Tower will come out of seclusion? Besides, if he comes out of seclusion, what will happen if he protects Jiang Juan even more? Liang Xiaoxiao was silent for a while before she said, Strange. In the end, Jiang Juan is just a subordinate of the Yuntian Tower. How did she get to such a position? I heard that the leader of the Yuntian Tower doted on her since she was very young and specially brought her to the Yuntian Tower to raise her. If not for that, she would not have been so successful. Liang Ye shook his head. I'm afraid only they know the answer to this mystery. Then, Father, what should we do next? We can't just let her go like this, right? Liang Xiaoxiao would never be willing to do this.
Liang Ye pondered for a long time. Send someone to investigate first and see if we can find any evidence. Also, many people have been investigating Chuyu recently. What do you know about him? Chuyu? Isn't he on good terms with Rongxiu? But I don't know anything else. Although Chuyu's name had been very famous in the academy during this period of time, his background was indeed a mystery. It seems that Rongxiu wants to protect him. However, I heard that Chuyu broke through from the 8th stage to the 9th stage in just a few days in the northern part of the Great Desolate Land, and was even taken away by a group of mysterious people. You should know that quite a number of aristocratic families have suffered losses in that place this time. How could they be satisfied if they couldn't get the heavenly square cauldron? Perhaps, in the end, this trouble would still fall on Chuyu's head. Liang Ye pondered for a long time. Go back to the academy first and see what's going on with Chuyu. I'll go ask the other aristocratic families and see what they plan to do. Maybe we can find some clues related to Shao Kong from them. Although Liang Xiao wanted to deal with Jiang Zhuan immediately, she knew that with the Yuntian Tower's help, this was not something that could be solved in a day or two. For now, she could only plan for the long term. Okay. Lingxiao College. Dongwang Clock Tower. Elder Bo Yin was sitting alone in the room with a thick book in his hand. Ever since the dean left, the school's name list had been kept by him. On it, the names of every elder and student in Lingxiao College for 10,000 years were recorded. Of course, there were also the previous deans. He stared at the totem on the book for a long time before he finally took a deep breath and chose to open it. On the title page, the names of every dean were recorded. His eyes swept across the book one by one and finally stopped at the top. There was no name, only a piece of purple scale armor. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1410. That purple scale was only the size of a fingernail and was faintly glowing. Upon closer inspection, there were slightly undulating carvings on it. It was the totem of Lingxiao College, and this scale was left behind by the first dean of Lingxiao College. Unlike the other deans, this deans did not leave behind their names. Instead, they only used a piece of scale to reveal their identity. In reality, although Lingxiao College was the #1 college in the Divine Ruins world and was famous, no one knew the real name of its first dean. Back then, when he traveled the continent, he used many aliases, but no one knew which one was real and which one was fake. After establishing Lingxiao College, the world only called him dean. 10,000 years had passed, and the world had changed. Things remained the same, but people had changed. The legends and rumors about that person had mostly been buried in the long years and were no longer mentioned. Only the dean of Lingxiao College, Li Li, had the chance to know the real name of that person. Although Elder Bo Yin was now in charge of everything in the college, he still did not have the authority to see the name under the purple scale. He stared at it for a while, then shifted his gaze and looked at the last name on the page. This person was also at a loss, and no one knew where he was. Dean, you have to come back quickly. Elder Bo Yin could not help but sigh. Knock, knock. The sound of knocking suddenly came, interrupting Elder Bo Yin's thoughts. Bo Yin, something happened. This was Elder Wenxi's voice, with a rare anxiety and nervousness. Elder Bo Yin's heart sank slightly. He closed the book and carefully kept it before getting up to open the door. The moment the door opened, he met Elder Wenxi's worried eyes. What's wrong? He had never seen such an expression on Elder Wenxi's face before. Elder Wenxi swallowed his saliva with difficulty. They're here. Those first-rate families and clans that went to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land before. Elder Wenxi spoke very quickly. They said that they have something to ask Chuyu and want us to hand Chuyu over. Ridiculous. Elder Bo Yin was enraged. This whole thing was carefully planned by someone behind the scenes. They can't find a mastermind, so they came to find trouble with Chuyu. This was completely unreasonable. Bo Yin, Elder Wenxi took a deep breath. Every family has people who died in those 9 valleys. You also know that Chuyu is the only one who entered those valleys and clearly benefited from it.
They think that Chu Yu should give an explanation for this matter. Strictly speaking, Jiang Juan had been there before, but not long after she entered, she was chased out by Chu Yu. This was something that many people had seen clearly at that time. And it was also after that. It was unknown what Chu Yu did, but he sealed the barrier, making it impossible for others to enter. These were all facts that could not be changed no matter what. For them to push the blame onto Chu Yu, it seemed like it wasn't completely without basis. Otherwise, they would not have joined forces and forced their way to the entrance of Lingxiao College. Elder Bo Yin frowned. He hadn't seen these things with his own eyes, but he had heard Elder Hua Feng mention it before. At that time, he vaguely felt that something was wrong. Now, trouble had indeed come. I'll meet them personally. Fong State City. The streets that used to be bustling with noise and excitement were now empty and silent. Only the area connected to the Spirit Firmament Academy's enchantment was covered in darkness. Everyone in the city heard the news and went back to hide carefully. They were afraid that this storm would affect them. There were only a few dozen people standing here, but the forces behind them were all first-rate families and clans in the Divine Ruins world. With a casual stomp of their feet, they could shake the entire Divine Ruins world. Ordinary people naturally couldn't dodge in time, but in their hearts they also had doubts. They didn't know what had happened to make these people choose to join forces and challenge Lingxiao College. This was the first time in 100 years. Everyone stood in one place, each of them silent. The atmosphere was oppressive and the air was condensed. It was almost suffocating. Not far away, the elders in charge of guarding the barrier also had solemn expressions. The confrontation between the two sides was about to break out. When Elder Bo Yin rushed over, this was the scene he saw. Even though his heart was burning with anger, he had no choice but to suppress it at this moment. He took a deep breath and was about to walk out of the barrier. Bo Yin, Elder Wen Shi and the others hesitated and called out to him. They didn't come with good intentions. It would be dangerous to go out rashly. Elder Bo Yin gave them a reassuring look. These people just wanted to use this formation to force them to hand over Chu Yu. They didn't really want to completely fall out with Lingxiao College. Now that he represented the entire school, they didn't dare to do anything to him. After comforting them, Elder Bo Yin stepped out of the barrier. He stood in front of the barrier, cupped his hands at everyone, and said with a smile, "You all came from afar? Why didn't you greet us in advance? What if we neglect you?" As he spoke, he had already quietly swept his gaze across the faces of these people. Most of them were familiar faces. Many of them had personal grudges against each other. And now, they were all standing on the same side to force them to hand over Chu Yu. How laughable. Elder Bo Yin, we're all old acquaintances. Let's not beat around the bush. A middle-aged man spoke. I believe you already know why we're here today. It's up to you whether you want to let him go or not. Elder Bo Yin laughed, but there was no trace of a smile in his eyes. Since that's the case, I won't say any more nonsense. But if you want my Lingxiao College to hand him over, you must have a reason, right? Reason? Elder Bo Yin, you should know this reason too, right? Do you dare to say that Chu Yu really has no problems with the matter of the Primordial North? Another younger man raised his voice and spoke with a hint of viciousness in his eyes. So many people died, and only Chu Yu benefited a lot. Moreover, it's obvious that he has something to do with the canyon. You'd better let him come out and explain it to us personally. Elder Bo Yin frowned slightly and took another look at the young man. With so many people working together, their strength was strong. Even these people started to set up the height of heaven and depth of earth. Chu Yu is a student of my Lingxiao College. If he really did something wrong, we won't let him off. But if someone wants to slander and bully him, we won't agree either. Elder Bo Yin's voice wasn't loud, but his words were sonorous. His words were naturally filled with a tyrannical aura. The scene immediately became much quieter. Then, he stroked his beard and said slowly, "Moreover, you all came at a bad time. He was just locked up in Mount Pangmin. I'm afraid he won't be able to come out in the short term. Digression. I'll go have a meal first and continue at 6 in the afternoon. I've been running outside every day for the past 2 days and slept for 4 to 5 hours a day. I was so muddled that I thought it was my last day. Yesterday, I couldn't hold on any longer and took medicine to force myself to sleep early. When I woke up, I felt much better. Today is also the day I'm going to add more chapters. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1411. The moment he said that, everyone was in an uproar. He did not send him in earlier or later, but just had to lock him in at this time. Wasn't this clearly protecting him to the end? Elder Bo Yin, if I remember correctly, that Pengmin Mountain seems to be a place that Lingxiao College specially uses to punish students who have made mistakes. Why was Chuyu locked up for no reason? A somewhat ear-piercing voice sounded. The scene was silent for a moment. Every pair of eyes looked at Elder Bo Yin suspiciously and inquisitively. Elder Bo Yin stroked his beard. He did indeed violate a few of the school's rules. Originally, he should have been locked up immediately after returning. But at that time, he was in a coma, so we let it go. We only sent him over when he woke up and his body was better. The other party did not let it go. Oh, then I wonder if it's convenient for Elder Bo Yin to reveal which rules Chuyu violated, so that we can all know a little? Hearing this, the smile on Elder Bo Yin's face faded. This is my Lingxiao College's matter. Whether it's a reward or punishment, it seems it has nothing to do with outsiders. And there's no need to explain to outsiders, right? They were just a little low-key usually, but it did not mean that the current Lingxiao College could be bullied by others. If everyone wanted to interfere in their school's matters, wouldn't it be chaotic? Elder Bo Yan's words made everyone unable to refute. Now that he was in charge of the entire Lingxiao College, whoever he said was wrong was wrong. If he wanted to punish someone, it was indeed not up to others to interfere. Sensing the cold anger in Elder Bo Yan's words, the other party shut his mouth embarrassedly. However, the others did not intend to let it go. Elder Bo Yin, we have no intention of interfering in your school's matters. But regarding Chuyu's matter, we must seek an explanation this time. That's right. We have known each other for many years, and you know that we are not unreasonable people. If not for the fact that we had no choice, we would not want to offend your school and come so rashly. Now, there's really no other way. In the northern region of the primordial world, every family has suffered heavy losses, and only Chuyu has benefited from it. It really makes people suspicious. Actually, Elder Bo Yin, you don't have to be so nervous. As long as you let Chuyu come over and explain the situation clearly in front of everyone, it will be fine. This way we can talk things out. It's good for everyone, don't you think? These people spoke one after another and said a lot of things. However, Elder Bo Yin only laughed coldly in his heart. He had lived for so many years, what had he not seen before? Hearing this, these people were indeed quite considerate. But in reality, that was not the case at all. If they really wanted to reason things out like this, they wouldn't have come all the way to Fangzhou City and put on such a show. In other words, the knife was already on his shoulder. If he pretended that he wanted to communicate properly, would it be believable? How laughable. Elder Bo Yin was also very magnanimous. Although he was indignant in his heart, his expression did not change much, and he restrained himself from being polite. As the other party spoke, he listened. It wasn't until the other party had spoken until their mouths were dry and their tongues were dry that he nodded his head unhurriedly. Everyone's words are very reasonable. Many people's eyes lit up. However, Elder Bo Yin changed the topic. This old man also has some things to say to all of you. The primordial northern region is very dangerous. Since ancient times, who knows how many experts have gone there but never returned. When all of you brought people there previously, you should have understood this point, right? Not to mention all of you, even my Lingxiao College was in danger this time. We lost 3 elders and several students. You came to my Lingxiao College to ask for an explanation. Then, who should we look for? Everyone was speechless. Moreover, when all of you were willing to take the risk to go to the primordial northern region at the beginning, it should have been because of the heavenly square cauldron. Now, everything has been proven. This is just a piece of fake news deliberately released by someone. The purpose is to lure everyone there, and then to cause harm. You did not investigate who the mastermind behind this is, but instead came to my Ling Xiao Academy to question a teenager? Do you think that all of this was planned by him? Some people's expressions had already begun to turn ugly. This old man knows why all of you are only targeting Chuyu. It's because he obtained some opportunities in the primordial northern region, and you think that there's something wrong with him. But luck was something that could never be predicted. Just because he had coincidentally obtained something, he had to be attacked by a group of people. Wasn't this a little too unfair? You might not know, but Chuyu originally did not go to the primordial northern region this time. It was only later that someone used some methods to lure Hua Feng and the others there that he followed. Elder Bo Yin laughed, his old and deep gaze swept across the crowd. There's one last point. This old man wants to ask all of you, if you want to find Chuyu for an explanation, can you take out any evidence to prove that the deaths of your people have anything to do with Chuyu? As soon as he finished speaking, the entire place fell silent. In fact, how could they not know that they were just relying on their numbers to make trouble for no reason? In the end, they were just angry. However, they could not find the culprit and could only find a soft persimmon to pinch. Everyone thought that Lingxiao College would hand Chuyu over on account of them coming forward together. However, they did not expect Elder Bo Yan's attitude to be so unyielding. No matter what, he wanted to protect Chuyu. This made some people start to suspect Chuyu's identity. After a moment of stalemate, Elder Bo Yan softened his tone and said amiably, "Actually, this old man can understand everyone's feelings. After all, it's not easy for any aristocratic family to nurture an expert. Furthermore, everyone suffered heavy losses in the primordial northern region. Why don't we join forces to investigate this matter first? There's strength in numbers. Perhaps we can find something. Also, after a period of time, when Chuyu comes out of Mount Pengmin, let him explain it to everyone." Elder Bo Yin retreated in order to advance and gave him a way out. Many people hesitated. They did not want to make things too ugly with Lingxiao College. If they could discuss and resolve it, it would naturally be best. Furthermore, even if Chuyu could hide in Lingxiao College for a while, it was impossible for him to not come out for the rest of his life. As long as they wanted to find him, there would always be a chance. Since Elder Bo Yin had already said so, perhaps they should take a step back. If that's the case, then I'm afraid that won't work. An opposing voice suddenly sounded. Elder Bo Yin frowned and looked over. The person who spoke was Jean D. "Elder Bo Yin, everyone here came from afar just to let Chuyu come out and explain the matter clearly. If we go back now, who knows how long we will have to wait. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network." Chapter 14:12. Elder Bo Yan's voice turned cold. "But Chuyu has been locked up in Min Mountain. Isn't it up to you to decide whether to lock him up or not?" Jean D rubbed his chin and smiled sinisterly. Could it be that with so many of us here, we can't even invite him? He didn't care what the others thought. Since he was here today, he wouldn't be sent away so easily. Others might be afraid of offending Lingxiao College, but he wasn't. After all, they already had a grudge against each other. Jean D's words made those who were wavering change their minds again. That's right. They had spent a lot of effort to come here. If they just let it go, wouldn't it be a waste of effort? Jean D's words make sense. "Elder Bo Yin, for the sake of the big picture, why don't you let Chuyu come over first?" "That's right. Since everyone is here, they can't do anything to him. What's more, he should know the most. Wouldn't it be more efficient to ask him directly instead of us investigating like headless flies?" Everyone's emotions were stirred up again. Elder Bo Yin put his hands behind his back and clenched them into fists. These people, it wouldn't be easy to get rid of them. His gaze turned cold. Just as he was about to speak, a low and pleasant voice came from behind him. "Chuyu can't come over for the time being. If you have any questions, just ask me." Everyone looked at the person who came. There was a moment of silence. The man who slowly walked over was tall and slender, handsome and enchanting. From top to bottom, from inside to outside, he seemed to have restrained all the elegance in the world.
There wasn't a spot that wasn't perfect. He was really elegant and charming. Elder Bo Yin was stunned. Rongxiu, why are you here? Rongxiu's thin scarlet lips curled into a faint smile. It's rare to be so lively here. Besides, it's not easy to see so many important people in the Divine Ruins world at once. I naturally have to come and take a look. What he said was, This Highness. He wasn't speaking as a student of the school, but as the saint of Yuntian Tower. Elder Bo Yan's eyes flickered. Rongxiu had already walked forward. His cold and indifferent gaze swept across the crowd. Everyone had different expressions. Most of them had never seen Rongxiu before. The famous holy son of the Yuntian Tower had only taken a few years to reach his current position. Moreover, he had always been elusive. In the Divine Ruins world, there were many first-rate families, and the distance between them was very far. If there was no big matter, they would basically not frequent each other. Naturally, there was no chance for them to meet in person. Now that he looked at it, it was indeed a well-deserved reputation. Although he was young, the aura he exuded didn't lose out in the slightest when compared to these people who had rebuked the heavens and earth for many years. Rongxiu, from what you said, you can speak on behalf of Chuyu. Golden Flute's voice was full of doubt. So, you know everything that happened to him in the northern region of Untainted Land? You can explain everything clearly? Rongxiu smiled and asked in return, Are you questioning I? Golden Flute choked. Just as he was about to angrily retort, he met Rongxiu's eyes that were as deep as an icy pond. In an instant, a chill suddenly surged in his heart, and most of his anger was inexplicably extinguished. That disdainful and indifferent gaze suddenly reminded him. According to the other party's status, he was indeed qualified to speak to him like this. Rongxiu was the holy son of a Yuntian Tower. Most importantly, he now held great power in his hands. Only the sect master of the Golden Wings sect could be on equal footing with him. And he, Golden Flute, absolutely did not have this qualification. Even if he was old and experienced, it was still not enough. The atmosphere became somewhat stiff and strange. They might have dared to threaten Elder Bo Yin, but they didn't dare to treat Rongxiu like this. Because Elder Bo Yin didn't dare to bet the entire academy, but Rongxiu could raise the power of the Yuntian Tower and fight to the death with them. This was a ruthless character who killed without batting an eyelid. Over the years, there were many rumors about this holy son, and most of them were filled with bloodshed and brutality. He could even wipe out one of the 28 divisions of the Yuntian Tower, the unparalleled palace, let alone others. After a while, someone finally asked awkwardly, Rongxiu now, with what identity are you answering these questions on behalf of Chuyu? Everyone's ears perked up. Even Elder Bo Yan's heart tightened. This question was actually asking about the relationship between the two of them. Rongxiu's answer would determine how they would treat Chuyu in the future, so it was very important. In the silence, Rongxiu's sword-like eyebrows raised slightly, and the corners of his lips curled into a slight smile. If I must give a title, I am her direct relative. Now, if you have any questions, you can ask. Red Moon Desert. It was currently daytime, and the scorching sun was overhead. Yellow sand billowed, and the air seemed to be distorted by the heat waves. A petite and vigorous figure suddenly appeared on the sand dune. Suddenly, the surrounding yellow sand rapidly gathered, and in the blink of an eye, it formed several sandballs. They flew towards that person from all directions. Swoosh! That figure instantly disappeared from where she was. These sandballs collided with each other and quickly dispersed. In the next moment, on another sand dune dozens of miles away, that figure appeared again. Poof! A fist formed by yellow sand suddenly appeared from the void and went straight for that person's back. However, that person seemed to have eyes at the back of her head. She bent her waist and quickly pounced forward. She narrowly avoided this attack. At the same time, her feet moved quickly, and she immediately kicked with her long legs. Bang! The fist formed by yellow sand was instantly kicked to pieces. Only then did that figure finally heave a sigh of relief. She straightened her body and smiled brightly.
her almond-shaped eyes sparkling. This person was Mu Hongyu, who had been specially sent here by Chu Luiyue to cultivate. After staying here for a few months, her originally fair face had been tanned to a wheat color. The daily high-load training almost left her no time to rest. But fortunately, she gritted her teeth and persevered. Senior Diwu, this time, I finally passed the test, right? Digression. After a meal, I will continue at about 9 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 14:13. Only the heavens knew how much she had suffered for this day. However, what comforted her was that her strength had also increased rapidly in this process. Just yesterday, she had broken through to become a rank 9 warrior. It was also because of this that she was able to deal with such a difficult and complicated test so easily today. Before coming here, even she herself did not expect that she would be able to complete such a huge breakthrough in such a short period of time. Not bad. Fifth Elder's smiling voice sounded. Not far away, faint ripples appeared on the clear lake. After breaking through to rank 9, your strength has increased a lot. To you, all of this is no longer a big deal. After receiving the affirmation, Mu Hongyu's smile became even brighter. Thank you, Senior Diwu. Then, she blinked and asked apprehensively, What's the matter? You said before that as long as I pass the test, you will send me to see Lu Yu. Ha! I knew you were going to mention this. Don't worry, I will never go back on my promise to you. Fifth Elder answered very straightforwardly. It's just that this matter can't be rushed. We have to wait for an opportunity first. Mu Hongyu was a little confused. Opportunity? What kind of opportunity? At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air suddenly came from the sky. She looked back. A purple light flew over from the horizon. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of her. Mu Hongyu widened her eyes slightly, feeling that this aura was very familiar. Wait, isn't this swoosh? Before she could see clearly, the other party had already disappeared in a flash. Only an afterimage was left as it gradually dissipated. A soft sound came from the lake not far away. Mu Hongyu subconsciously held her breath. This should be that person returning, right? But why doesn't Lu Yu seem to be with him? Mu Hongyu scanned her surroundings with uncertainty. Indeed, she did not see that familiar figure and was a little disappointed. Hongyu, go and rest first. Diwu Zhang's voice sounded. Mu Hongyu was a little confused, but she still obediently agreed. Yes. She glanced in the direction of the lake a few times before her figure flashed and disappeared into the void. Under the lake, there was an extremely hidden space. The 4 walls were made of black iron, and each wall was engraved with strange patterns that emitted rays of light. These lights intertwined and overlapped with each other, forming a huge and complicated rune. A heavy pressure continuously spread out from within. It could almost crush everything. Under the rune, 2 illusory figures were suppressed. It was Diwu Zhangze and Lan Xiao. The runes pierced through their heads and bodies, nailing them to the ground. Apart from the night of the scarlet moon, none of them could leave this place. This was a cage. Purple light flickered. Duga Mabao's figure gradually appeared. His gaze swept across the 2 of them calmly, and when he saw Lan Xiao, he frowned. This was because Lan Xiao's figure was obviously much more illusory than Diwu Zhang's, and his aura was weak. Furthermore, half of his handsome face had festered away. He was sitting cross-legged with his brows tightly knitted. He didn't look well. Debeo, you're finally back. Diwu Zhangze let out a long sigh. What's wrong with him? Duga Mabao asked in a low voice. Lan Xiao valued his face the most, and he definitely wouldn't allow his face to become like this. Clearly, something must have happened. Diwu Zhangze sighed helplessly. It's all because he wants to leave this place. After you left, he also wanted to forcefully reconstruct his divine body, but he didn't succeed and became like this. Lan Zhao's strength wasn't comparable to Duga Mabao's. Duga Mabao had failed once, but he still had the ability to try a second time, but Lan Xiao couldn't. Furthermore, Duga Mabao only succeeded because of Rong Xiao and Chu Yuyue's help. How could Lan Xiao succeed when he was fighting alone? Stupid. Impulsive. Duga Mabao was also angry. Doesn't he know how dangerous it is to do this? He's waited for so many years. What's the difference in time? Diwu Zhangze smiled bitterly and shook his head. I also advised him, but you fought with someone before, right? Duga Mabao paused. I've already blocked the news. As long as you fight, the other party will notice. It's just a matter of time. Diwu Zhangze interrupted Duga Mabao, which was rare. If you weren't in big trouble, you definitely wouldn't have fought so easily. Lan Xiao was anxious, so Duga Mabao was silent for a moment. I didn't think it through. The situation was too urgent, so I didn't care about that. You've always been cautious, so how could you not care? You must have been in a desperate situation, so you had no choice. They had known each other for many years and knew each other very well. Others might believe these words, but they couldn't fool the other party. There was a moment of silence. Duga Mabao said, "Forget it. We'll talk about this later. Let's heal him first." Diwu Zhangze nodded. During this period, he had put a lot of effort to stabilize Lan Zhao's injuries. However, without a divine body, there was a limit to what he could do. He could only rely on Duga Mabao. By the way, how's Yue? Diwu Zhangze asked with concern. They had been gone for a few months, and he didn't know how they were doing over there. Duga Mabao's eyebrows twitched slightly. She should be breaking through to the God Realm soon. Lingxiao College. Chu Luiyue was unaware of everything that was happening in the outside world. Her eyes were tightly shut, and she seemed to have entered a strange state. The aura on her body was also rising at an alarming speed. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.